I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
So here we are in the thick of it now. There's a Pacers win streak to discuss. I did not have that on my bingo card, truth be told. Obviously, when you're talking about the NFL and the continuation of the NFL playoffs and, you know, maybe one team kind of hitting its groove at the right time, then you start to turn towards things with the Colts and how it relates to them. There is that to get to. College basketball as well, and then, of course, the big one. Monday night, the national championship game. We will continue talking about that between Indiana and Miami. Later in the week, you kind of get more into some of the nuances, perhaps, of what to anticipate from the matchup itself. But because we have not had a chance to do so since he was last here, Eddie Garrison was off on Friday because he went down to the Peach Bowl to see Indiana lay the wood to Oregon, and then the unique opportunity to fill in for photo shoots yesterday as the Oregon Ducks, so crossing over a little bit there. But back in the saddle now. So, Eddie, let's begin with this. I wanted you to simply kind of recap for people just your experience in being at the Peach Bowl and seeing that sea of red and Indiana's domination of Oregon.
So first and foremost, I wish we had the ability, Olivia and I, to leave on Thursday so we could have gotten like the full experience of being down there for the game day, seeing what it was like with the festivities and everything with FanFest around downtown Atlanta, but we weren't able to. So we ended up leaving about 8:45 Friday morning, which is a little later than I wanted to. And by the way, Chattanooga traffic is the worst. Absolute
I love
worst.
Chattanooga, though.
The traffic was horrible.
I know, but when you come up over and the whole city's below you, I love it. I love Chattanooga.
But so once we get through there, we got to Atlanta probably 6 o'clock, met up with my dad and my brother at their hotel. Then we all rode together to the parking garage. Then we walked in the rain and got absolutely drenched. And the entire walk there, it's just, you know, you're seeing crimson everywhere. And it's just like, holy cow. It's like Bloomington South all over again, and all you hear is who's your chance, like all over and just on repeat. And then once the game actually started, I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that pick six by D'Angelo Pons to start the game. And I was in attendance for the Colts Chiefs game when they completed the miraculous comeback and the Andrew Luck Superman touchdown at the goal line after the fumble by and to recover to put them on top. I was at that game, and I don't think I experienced anything like I did on last Friday with that first quarter pick. And it was just kind of enlightening to see how many people from not even just from Indiana, but like across the United States were in that arena or that stadium on Friday night, because we made friends, Olivia and I did, with the people around us. So the two people to our left and right were both from Alabama. They were born and raised in Indiana, moved to Alabama. They remained IU fans even through all the turmoil, even though Alabama, you know, is right. Alabama. We had a couple that were behind us that were from South Carolina, and then a couple that were in front of us that were from Nebraska. So, like, everybody that you can think of from every walk of life, almost every state could have probably been represented there Friday night in Georgia, and it was just absolutely electric.
The game itself, I mean, I don't know how it felt, Eddie, in the stands, but watching it on television, the second that Pons scored that touchdown, I literally said to anyone who could hear me, which probably the 10 or 12 people in the restaurant near me is more than hear me between 12 and 3, but I said out loud, this game's over. It's over. Now, I thought Oregon, and a buddy of mine asked me a really, I thought, astute question. And it's neither here nor there, but it can be applicable for the championship game. If Oregon had opened the game with the drive that they had on their second drive, they were very efficient in that drive. And if they had opened the game with that kind of a drive, would that have changed the tone of the game? Would it have changed Indiana's swagger and their confidence, and then the way Indiana came out offensively? And, I don't know. And it's neither here nor there because that didn't happen. But does that cause, Miami? Did Miami see anything in that second drive for Oregon that, they think, okay, this is the way to attack Indiana right off the box? I thought that, the first play from Pons more kind of telegraphed where that was going, but it was a great anticipation from D'Angelo Pons.
Absolutely.
Of course, we now know that that's because they had tapped into the cloud and they knew all of Oregon's plays, right?
Isn't it so funny how we've gone from IU is so underrated to them being completely overrated to them being one of the best teams in college football to now being accused of cheating?
Well,
like the progression of all of this.
Correct. It went from this. It went from Indiana hasn't played anybody to Indiana has a decent win, but look at the games they struggled, to Indiana isn't ready for the big stage of the postseason, to Indiana got it down Alabama, but now it's really difficult to beat someone twice, to Indiana's cheating. I mean, that's where it is. And I think, Eddie, there are three things that factor in against Indiana with these kind of increased allegations of, not increased allegations, the noise, the volume level of like Indiana's cheating. Now, I think it's absurd. I don't think there's anything to it. I think most people would say, show me evidence. But it speaks to the state that we live in today, the world that we live in today. No one trusts anything.
Right.
Everything that you see before your eyes now has to be manipulated. Everything you see before your eyes has to be fake. And for that matter, I can't be the only one that does this now. When you go to journalism school, which I did not, but I was an English major, but I took a journalism class. But when you go to journalism school, it is taught that before anything goes into print, it has to be double confirmed. Some places say triple confirmed. And we are now all becoming conditioned to having to believe exactly that, because anything that you see, whether it's a video of somebody making a speech, whether it's a video of an altercation in a parking lot, whether it's a headline, my natural tendency now is to immediately go and try to double check the authenticity of it, or to find out whether or not this is AI or manipulated or misrepresented or misinterpreted.
And there's so many like parody accounts out there in social media nowadays.
Totally.
You don't know who's real and who's not.
Correct. Like for example, some of the stuff that you see of people saying that Indiana, and for those that are unfamiliar with it, the allegation is there are two different ones. One is that Indiana has a cybersecurity expert that works for the program itself that has hacked into the cloud or the computer systems of the opposition and thus can see their game plan, their film sessions, etc. The other is the age-old, which goes back to like the Bill Belichick era of when the Colts were going into New England, of, hey, they're tapping into the transmission of the coaches speaking inside the helmet or the coordinators down to the coaches on the sideline. They're tapping into that. All of that, of course, until there's proof of it, is realistically what it is an ultimate compliment to Indiana's preparation. That Indiana is so prepared and they are so disciplined that it's like, there's no way this can authentically be the case. But we live in a world where, number one, there's enough fake stuff floating out there that we now believe that nothing's real. Even the best of things we think can't be real. And number two, we live in a world where the reality is that in hacking and cyber securities and all that, we just kind of assume that everything's available to be seen or tapped into. But the overwhelming storyline that should be taken from this is that this means that people that aren't even fans of Indiana are looking at this saying, this can't be real. There must be a simplistic, plausible explanation. It cannot be that a guy who grew up in Pennsylvania, a guy who grew up in the Pittsburgh area and is the son of a coach, whose dad coached Indiana of Pennsylvania to a national championship game at the D2 level. It cannot be that that guy then went with a coordinator he was paying $8,000 a year and worked his way up to mighty James Madison, and then finally got an opportunity at a Power 5 school, the worst losingest program in the history of college football, and said, I'll take it. I'll take the challenge. I'll take the challenge, and I'll take with me some of my players. Elijah Surratt, who no one had heard of when he was in high school. D'Angelo Pons. Aiden Fisher. I'll take with me these guys. And I'll complement them with players that are already on the campus in Indiana, other transfers that I can get to come in. And I will go with productivity over potential. And I will bring with me players that have played multiple years elsewhere and understand the game and understand how to be coached. And I will take with me players that when I decide whether or not to bring them to Indiana, I've watched hours upon hours of film, not just in their playing, but also in their demeanor. I've studied them on the sidelines. I've watched the way they interact with teammates. I've done background on all of that to see whether or not they will buy into what it is that I want done. And when I arrive at Indiana, I'm going to have a lot of guys that are going to want to come around and be kind of hangers-on, some of which were on teams that never won a game, some of which won 4 games in 2 years, 3 years. And I don't necessarily want those guys hanging around the program. I appreciate their contribution to it, but I'm trying to change a culture. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to say outlandishly confident things. And I'm going to do it because I walked in and I realized that I bought a house knowing that it was going to need some fixer-upper and didn't realize that it needed to be completely flipped and that literally everything from the plumbing to the attic needed to be totally revamped with a fresh coat of paint. And that's what Curt Cignetti did. And I mentioned this perhaps yesterday, I don't recall. But to put it in the weird Jake Queryism of my brain, the way it works format, Eddie, it comes down to as simply as this. The man who saw his father coach Indiana University of Pennsylvania to the Division II national championship now has Indiana University of Indiana in the Division I national championship. And a man who was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the same hospital as a guy by the name of Mark Cuban, now is going down to Miami with a quarterback that is of Cuban descent to play against Miami in the hometown of the quarterback of Cuban descent that is playing for Indiana but now plays against Miami, against a coach who the quarterback's father played with in high school. And that coach for Miami, Mario Cristobal, is coaching against the quarterback of Cuban descent. And they're doing it all now in Miami with Curt Cignetti going up against the coach that coached his quarterback, the coach who played with the father of the quarterback in high school. And all of it, of course, being assisted by the financial contribution of Mark Cuban, not to be confused with the Cuban descent quarterback or the hospital in which he was also born in the same place as Curt Cignetti. There are a lot of tie-ins that tie it all together.
Did you mention that Fernando Mendoza's father and Mario Cristobal were teammates?
Yes.
In high school?
I did.
And did you add the fact that his mother played tennis at Miami?
I did know that his mother played tennis at Miami, yes. And he grew up like a mile from Miami, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did not add that in, but yeah, I mean, yes. So my point being, there are a million things that connect these two programs, but one that does not connect the two of them is history or tradition at all. Miami, a great tradition. Miami, a great history. One thing also that's interesting, probably 80% of the fans that you see wearing red inside the stadium or in these bowl games are people who went to Indiana who until 10 years ago didn't really even realize there was a football program. And 80% of the fans that you see wearing Miami stuff at the games and throughout their bowl games are all fans of Miami that until 10 years ago didn't even know it was a university. They just knew it was a football program. I'm being a little facetious on both counts, but you get what I'm saying. It is a contrast of style. It is a contrast of history, but it may be with Miami. Miami might well be the most physical team that Indiana faces this season. Indiana's faced some physical teams. Indiana's faced some tough noses. Iowa's pretty physical. They had Indiana dead to rights, and Indiana found a way to win. Ohio State, very athletic, covers a lot of space, and Indiana gets that win. But the front four for Miami is flat out nasty. And Indiana's got a very good offensive line. So that's going to be, I think this game is going to come down to the trenches, number one, and then number two, and this is where I say advantage Indiana. Indiana now in the postseason has forced 4 turnovers. They have yet to turn the ball over themselves in the postseason, knock on wood. Miami is prone to turning the ball over or making silly mistakes. Costly penalties, turnover, that's going to be the difference. There's going to be a key play negated. Mark my words. There will be a big-time play negated in the national championship game by a penalty against Miami, and there will be a costly Miami turnover, and that's going to be the difference in the game. And I do believe, I don't want to jinx anything, but I do believe that it's going to be a very fun show coming up 1 week from today.
The other aspect to this, Jake, that I don't know if we will spend a ton talking about, Carson Beck is the most experienced quarterback this Hoosiers defense will face all season. This will be his 6th game between an SEC championship and the college football playoff. And he's a 5-year starter. Other than that, there's nobody that IU has faced this year in terms of quarterbacks on their schedule that have the experience that Carson Beck does. And does that experience that he has give him an advantage against this Hoosiers defense? Because one of the things that they like to do is, muddy things up at the line of scrimmage and, confuse coverages. Well, does that confuse Carson Beck, who has played a ton of football and a ton of high-pressure moments as well?
Beck is a guy we can poo-poo that he's getting $6 million as a transfer, reportedly. But Mendoza's getting 3.5. I mean, this is par for the course all the way across the board. Last night I was at the Pacer game, more on that in a second, and somebody said to me, man, Indiana's just cleaning up in the portal. And I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, things are cyclical, right? I mean, I remember when Clemson was at the top of their game, and it was like, just bring it. I mean, every 5-star wanted to come to Clemson. Now everybody wants to come to Indiana. I totally get why. Why would you not want to go to that situation? But also, Indiana is willing to spend an NIL. Maybe not to the point that an Ohio State is spending or even a Miami is spending, but they're spending more than Minnesota. They're spending more than Purdue. And they can say, look, you can come play for a national championship. And you can also come play at a place where the reputed nature of it is you're playing for a coach that is not making you go out and junction boys it. Hey, come out, do your stuff, learn what we need, learn what your job is, and done. Hour and a half out the door. It's pretty appealing. Pretty appealing. I thought it was interesting last night, Eddie, that the Boston Celtics, as part of their city jerseys, wore white with gold trim. Now, I looked up the reasoning for this. Do you know the reasoning why Boston went with the gold trim?
Is it something to do with the championships and their franchise history or something?
Yes. Initially, Stephen Holder made this point, which I thought was a good point. We're sitting there, and I'm saying, what is the reasoning for the gold? And Holder said, they're the Celtics. They have the little Celtic fella, which then leads you to believe. Now, this is Holder's theory on it, right? Who's going to join us on the show so you can make fun of him if it sounds ridiculous. But I thought it actually was plausible. You know what? What does a leprechaun find at the end of the rainbow? I mean, what's always at the end of the rainbow that the leprechaun's looking for, Eddie? Come on.
Pot of gold.
Yes. The pot of gold. Yeah, I love the Celtics, and I think they should wear a little gold for the pot of gold I'm always looking for at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, there's a reason why I'd acknowledge it.
Yes, yeah, kids love the leprechaun voice. I go out in public, and kids come up to me, and they say, can you do the leprechaun? I say, I know not what a rat it is you're speaking. They just love it. Kids love it. But it is actually and I found this to be a little bit arrogant. The Boston Celtics city uniforms designed with gold because, quote, they are the gold standard. Which is probably true, but don't you kind of let other people tell you that instead of declaring it yourself? They're the gold standard. Okay. Last night, a solid win for Indiana. And don't look now, Eddie. But you know who is, it's a very intriguing year for the Pacers for a couple of reasons. The first being, I've got to hand it to, for all of the talk and discussion and analysis and nitpick about fans of Central Indiana being fair weather. And, oh, look at, all the teams that get supported in Indianapolis when they're doing well. And then, for all of that discussion. And I think it's because we tangibly know why the Pacers are off pace. But it has been pretty impressive to go to the games and look, and the energy feels the same. The enthusiasm feels the same. And the attendance looks the same. I mean, last night, and I know they're playing Boston, who's a great team, obviously, and no Jaylen Brown, who was hurt with back spasms. But, it's understandable why there would be a packed house or a close to sellout for the Boston Celtics. But a Monday night game in the middle of January, and it was packed. And there's a good juice about it, and people stayed till the end, and it was an exciting finish. And before people like myself can naturally and skeptically say, gosh, are they going to play their way out of getting a top 4 pick? A reminder that while last night they stepped aside and allowed the New Orleans Pelicans to take over the record for the mark for worst record in the league this year, it is the bottom 4 teams that all have equal chance at the number 1 overall pick. And as a matter of fact, since the new format, the worst team in the league has yet to land the number 1 pick. So they're still right there in the mix for that. But the other thing that has taken place this year, aside from what I think is a refreshing level of continued support, largely because they know the reasoning, right, on why Indiana's struggling. But this has been a year where they have allowed themselves, have the Pacers, to kind of audition different players of who really does work their way into the rotation or to be a player that can round out their roster once everybody's back and healthy. And there are really 3 players. Now, Eddie, I'm going to give you the category of the players, okay? And when I give you the category, I want you to stew on this and tell me which player fits which category. Are you ready?
Okay. Are you going to give me the categories first and I give you the player, or you give me a category?
I'm going to give you the category. You're going to stew on it for about 5 minutes. We're going to come back, and then you can tell me the player.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, my big brain needs a lot of time to process of what you're about to tell me.
Category 1. This is a player that you waited to see whether or not it's a player that can be starting or sixth-man element and probably does not crack into that, but has enough intrigue that you keep around as a rotational piece. Okay? So category 1, rotational piece that you thought maybe more was going to be there, but you're settling for, okay, we'll just accept for the lesser role. That's player number 1. Player 2, player that there is a little bit of a constant buzz around said player because perhaps their biggest contribution now is going to be you flip them into pieces that you have to acquire from elsewhere. But you're curious whether or not that stock is not starting to dip. That's player 2. Player 3, a player that seemingly was just there to log minutes for the year, and you now look at it and go, could this be somebody that's worth keeping around? Was this a found $10 bill? The found $10 bill is player 3. And player 4 is the one player that has most taken advantage of this year's opportunity and really, I think, solidified themselves as a legitimate piece. Player 4, taking advantage of opportunity. I'll get your answers on those, and we'll discuss on the other side. Stephen Holder, 1 o'clock today. Scott Agnes, 2 o'clock today. Lots of talk on Indiana, Miami as well. Query and Company, you're listening to it here on a Tuesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Hey there, Jake Query for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripes. Surfside, which I've been seeing more and more places and people enjoying it, sporting events, whatever it may be, officially partnered with Purdue Athletics as well, but perfect no matter what game you're watching. I'm talking about no carbonation, so so smooth and just 100 calories, iced tea and vodka, and lemonade in vodka, and very smooth, very easy to enjoy, and multitude of flavors. Surfside, look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Please be 21 and please drink responsibly.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I have a question about whether or not something needs to be tweaked. There's a lot of that within the transfer portal as it relates to Indiana specifically, which we'll get to in about 10 minutes. But, Eddie, let's get back into the Pacers conversation after last night's win against the Celtics. I told you there were 4 guys that I was thinking about in this particular season, which we know is a kind of an audition year for some guys and just a let's get others up to speed level guys, okay? So player number 1 that I mentioned, this is a player that I think there was a higher expectation at one point, and I'm now resigned to the fact that the ceiling is simply a rotational piece. And maybe somebody that can give you some decent minutes, in critical moments, but it is not the first that you would lean on. But there's enough there to say, okay, let's roll with it. But I don't know that we are ever going to see a solid starting piece out of this player. Who am I talking about?
I believe you would be talking about Jarris Walker.
That is correct. I thought yesterday someone said this best to me. Someone said to me, Jarris Walker is like the C-plus student that has the highest IQ in the class. And that is not to say that that means that Jarris Walker is a slacker, which in that case someone would be if they're a C-plus student with a high IQ, but rather simply to say all of the physical gifts appear to be there and you just keep waiting for it to all come together. And he has shown it in flashes. But I think Jarris Walker is kind of a unique spot because you have seen enough to know that there can be contribution there, but I don't know that you've seen it regularly enough or transcendently enough for there to be a huge trade value for him. I don't know what the intrigue would be for other teams. But I do think that he is a guy that you can say, okay, you want to keep him through at least his rookie deal and then, maybe extend for a year or something to see if something develops fine.
I still think it's a fascinating point with Jarris because he's still 22 years old.
I know.
He's still a young guy.
I know.
And it's something that I've brought up with Tony East a couple times here and then on his podcast as well when he's been so gracious to ask me to come on is the fact that there hasn't really been a stability around Jarris Walker to the point where we know what kind of position he's best suited for. Like, I understand that they may have envisioned him in like this Draymond Green type of role where you can have him be a ball handler, you can have him be an initiator of the offense as an extra ball handler out there, but you've asked him to do so much so far in his first 3 seasons in the NBA that I don't know if you still have a full grasp on where he is best suited and who he's best suited to play next to. Like, he's had a good stretch here of lately being able to shoot the ball. That's been one of his biggest issues this season is just the consistency of shooting. But
consistency is the key here,
yeah.
Right? Or lack thereof. Okay, player number 2. A player that is tricky because he is someone that you could utilize to flip for more pieces, but you wonder now what exactly you would get in return. That is?
I believe that would be Benedict Mathurin.
Correct. And here is the bad analogy that I can come up with for this, okay? And I know it's a bad analogy. And I don't know that – thank you for the bad analogy, son. Okay. That's that fella playing a vacuum cleaner for the fish. Okay. Eddie, I may have asked you this the other day, and if I did, I apologize if I'm being redundant. Do you like rum?
Not alone. It's got to be mixed with other liquor for me to like it.
Like what? Give me a drink that you would put rum in.
A Long Island.
Okay. And so rum's fine, right? I mean, like a coconut rum, it's fine. People enjoy it. It's good. But Benedict Mathurin is rum. Rum is really good, and rum can do a lot of different things. You can put it in a pina colada, it's great. You can put it in, you can drink it on the rock, drink it cold, it's great. I mean, rum is, I think a lot of people like rum. Really good. And it can do a lot of different things for you. But the Pacers offense is an old-fashioned. It requires different ingredients. And rum is wonderful. And old-fashions are wonderful. But they don't really mix. You don't put rum in an old-fashioned. At least I don't think you do. And that's simply my point. I think Matherin, we have seen, is a talented player. And there is a place for him within the offense on nights when the Halliburton-led offense of the high three-point area weave isn't going for them. Then Matherin becomes valuable because he is an isolation, nose down, get to the basket, get out of my way guy. But those circumstances or situations are few and far between. And then this year, when you looked at it and said, okay, we're going to see if this is the year that he truly emerges and develops, and in the words of Rick Carlisle, has a golden opportunity before him. But is he taking advantage of that golden opportunity? And if he isn't, which I think at this point, and part of it is the injury, and I think maybe even part of why they are super sensitive and delicate about the toe injury is if he is not playing at a high level, then there has to be a reason for it if you're trying to still maintain his trade value. The other thing that I worry about, and I know this is me overthinking it, I worry about whether or not Matherin being out is when the Pacers finally started to come together and play well, if teams don't look at that and thus say, I don't know. But then again, I think they would realize that there are teams that really enjoyed the drinks that rum have, and they could use a good bottle of rum. The Pacers just decided to go with Old Fashions and Manhattans. Okay, player number 3. This player is like the found $10 bill when you're doing your laundry. You're like, oh, wow. I really thought this was someone that was just here to round out the roster. And yet there's a skill set there that's a little bit intriguing that I think may have this player be around when Halliburton's back and you've got a lottery pick or whatever it might be, and you really are, a 10th or 11th guy and not a significant player, but a solid piece if called upon for a 12 to 15-minute stretch in meaningful games. That player is?
Micah Potter.
That is exactly correct. You are 3 for 3. His ability, number one, to acclimate to the way that they want to play, but he can shoot, and he's pretty active, bigger than he is around the basket. He plays taller than he is. He's more active than you would imagine. And
he's a good passer, too, out of the post.
He is. He can do a lot of different things for them. I mean, none of them outstanding, right? But, really good in a lot of areas. And, again, when you're fully healthy, a 10, 12, 15-minute per night guy that gives you quality minutes and you're not losing a lot while getting somebody a breather. Okay, player number 4. A guy that I think, can now see is the one player that has taken advantage this year of opportunity and minutes and increased and improved as the season has gone on and has really, to a good side, taken advantage of the opportunity. That would be?
I think your friends in Australia are happy that I'm mentioning Johnny Furphy for this category.
Okay. Not bad.
Because I think the player that you're going to say I will push back on.
Okay. Who do you think I'm going to say?
Jay Huff.
Correct.
I would push back just a little.
Okay. In what way?
There hasn't been a level of consistency there for me to put him in the player that's taken advantage of his opportunity.
But I don't disagree, except for this. Jay Huff, as I mentioned yesterday, he hits the first 2 threes he takes in every game. He's now a stylish dunker, and he's a good rim protector. But what I'm getting at, Eddie, is you have to temper what his role would be. I don't disagree with you that he is not a starting center night in and night out, 25 minutes per game. But when you realistically look at, and I do anticipate this being the case, I think you use Matherin to trade for a starting center. It is my belief that when Tyrese Halliburton is healthy and Pascal Siakam is, towards the end of his deal, and Nesmith, Nembhard, when everyone's healthy and on board, and Obi Toppin as well that we forget about, when everybody's back next year and healthy, it is my belief that whoever starts at center for them and is their main starting center is not on the roster currently. So Jay Huff has shown to me, when you didn't know because he had limited minutes in Memphis what exactly his skill set was, I think he has shown that he is going to be a very reliable spot fill-in center, but backup center for 20 to 22 minutes per night, and very capable of and most importantly, you don't have to alter the system that you're playing. If you get somebody that plays a Miles Turner type style, Huff can play that exact thing where you are able to then play the same system when he comes in. Is he to the minutes that he's getting right now long-term? Perhaps not, but he has at least shown that, you know what, this guy is somebody that is going to be a good piece for them. And you didn't know what you were going to get out of him coming into the year. Now, there's one other player that we'll round this out with this, Eddie, and I think you'll agree with me on this. This one is and Johnny Furphy, I agree, they like Johnny Furphy a lot. They like his
really
quick release.
Johnny Furphy too.
They like his defense, and he's 20 years old. He hasn't gotten a lot of opportunity, but I think they know what's there. One other player, and that is
he's an aggressive rebounder. He is.
He's an underrated rebounder. The last player would be the one that kind of easy to have forgotten about this player, partially because it's like, what happened to him? And seems to have really just kind of fallen out of confidence. And gets a lot of minutes, but it feels like empty minutes. Who's that?
For empty minutes?
I mean, just goes out and there is something this player brings to the table, which is not a stat line contribution, admittedly, but it seems as though the secondary area where this player was a contributor seems to have gone away.
That be Ben Shepherd?
Correct.
Yeah.
Still a good defender, but man, he's got to become a more reliable outside shooter.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
I have a question about the transfer portal, and notably, it kind of relates to Indiana.
We also have some college breaking news to get to on the other side as well, Jake.
All right, we'll do it next. Hey there, Jake Query. You know, with the new year, everybody, guys, you know it. Everybody you know is telling you, this is the year we got to get in shape. You got to get in shape. And they got all kinds of advice for you. You know what? Why not listen to experts? Instead of the advice of just your buddy, whatever else, everybody has the right idea in mind. But you want to listen to experts, and that's where Game Day Men's Health is so big. Locally owned and operated right here in the Indianapolis metropolitan area. They got spots in Avon, Carmel, Fishers, Greenwood, and it is a new era for you because you can go ahead and level up, get back in the game, get that energy level. I'm talking about things like testosterone replacement. I'm talking about ED therapy. All of it available at Game Day Men's Health. And this is what I love about it. Game Day Men's Health is fully regulated clinic and FDA-approved pharmacies, ensuring safety and the highest standard of care right there for you, and personalized and individualized. Again, Game Day Men's Health in the Indy metro area. Avon, Carmel, Fishers, Greenwood. Find the location near you. Make an appointment. Find out about their awesome therapies, all at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Love this song. My all-time favorite. Okay, Eddie, you had mentioned before we get into transfer portal talk, you had mentioned that we have breaking news in the world of college football. Go ahead and hit the sounder for me.
This just does not apply to, I guess it does apply to college football specifically. This is from David Ubben of The Athletic. He covers college athletics specifically. He's a national college football writer for them. The FBS head coaches voted unanimously to expand the eligibility for redshirt years from 4 games to 9. Now, this is just a recommendation that will be put forth to the Division I committees. But, Jake, if this happens, I think this is absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, so what you're saying is, put this in language I can understand. You're saying that a player can play up to 9 games and then be held out and redshirt and get another year back.
Yes, they can play up to 9 games and still be eligible for a redshirt.
Okay. Now, along those lines of kind of the wild, wild west of navigating all of this new area, okay? You know, I was thinking about this. Fernando Mendoza went to Christopher Columbus High School. So too did his father. So did Mario Cristobal, the head coach of Miami. And it's almost fitting that Fernando Mendoza went to Christopher Columbus High School because in reality, Curt Cignetti is riding with Fernando Mendoza into this new world of college football, right? And Indiana is taking advantage of it better than anybody. And I'm here for it, don't get me wrong. As a matter of fact, dare I say it, Eddie? I'll show you. I mean, when it comes to the school that's going to take advantage of all this and navigate it better than anybody. Are you
stripping?
I'm just opening up my sweatshirt to show you why not Indiana. That is the reality, right? Indiana, as I've talked about a lot, with all of the transfer portal and NIL and all of that, was ahead of the curve on everybody, and they basically caught everybody napping.
I didn't know if you were going to be like your old co-host and go shirtless.
No, Kevin Bowen did that once and brought in donuts, and I couldn't eat the donut as a result. Now, when it comes to the transfer portal, and here's where my question comes. It has worked to Indiana's advantage. One of the things that Curt Cignetti did brilliantly, and it's a very underrated aspect of all of this. I talked to somebody yesterday that played basketball at Indiana. And they said, you know, Jake, when I arrived on campus to play for Bob Knight, the most important aspect of my arrival was there, and they mentioned 3 guys: Jeff Oliphant, Eric Anderson, Jamal Meeks. Those 3 guys, he said, were so invaluable in telling those of us that were coming in, okay, this is what to expect. This is the culture here. This is the expectation here. This is how you read Coach Knight's mood. This is how you know coming into a practice whether we're going to get kicked out of practice that day or it's going to be a light day, whatever it might be. And you learn as the year goes on, you kind of figured out the method to the madness. But you needed those guys that had been in the culture, in the system, in the locker room to tell the younger players, hey, get on board here, right? This is how it's going to be. And Curt Cignetti, in coming to Indiana, bringing with him the players from JMU, you know, Surratt and Fisher and Pons, the guys that came in that are able to say, in Black, the running back, you know, they're able to say, okay, we are coming here and we know what coach wants. We know what coach's expectation is. We know coach's demeanor. And that's been invaluable for the rest of the Indiana program because Curt Cignetti came in and knew that it needed a complete attitude adjustment, a complete culture change. So he had guys with him. It's one thing to come in and say, we're going to change everything around here. But it's another to say, we're going to change everything around here and then have a group of guys standing right behind you that say, and we can tell you that it will work. Because let me tell you about what we accomplished already. And so that's been invaluable. And Indiana used the portal in an expert sense in all facets. And they have a veteran team. But now, here is my question. The situation we have that is very unique. Brock Schott. Okay? If the name rings a bell, it's because he's from Indiana, Leo
I thought you
High
were trying
School.
to say Watt Shot. Sorry.
No, we celebrated that a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
We love celebrating. I mean, we love talking about the relevance of Indiana basketball by celebrating a regular season game victory over a team that later went on to win the national championship. But Brock Schott is a tight end.
By the way, saw Big Sexy when I was down there. Very nice guy.
Oh, yeah, Cody Zeller was down there, right?
Yeah.
Big Handsome, too, right? Didn't he go by both names?
Yeah, Big Handsome, Big Sexy, whatever.
I'm glad that he goes by Big Handsome, and you took it to the next level. That's cool. So Brock Schott is a tight end out of Leo High School and played at Miami. Out of high school, committed to Miami, went down to Coral Gables, played for the Hurricanes. Announced this year at the end of the regular season that he was entering the transfer portal and decided to come home. Decided to come home to Indiana. This is what is peculiar to me. I would think this has to be explored. Yes, it is a unique and incredibly rare circumstance. But you have a national championship game now, and Brock Schott is already involved with the Indiana football program. He transferred at semester break. He was immediately eligible to be within the program in Indiana. He's not playing in the game, but he's within the program in Indiana and is actively part of the Indiana football program. Playing against a team that theoretically he was practicing with and knows the cadence, the playbook, the play calls, the lineups, the formations, all of it from Miami from when he was there a month ago.
Yep.
Does it not seem, and listen, am I like, I'm not trying to poo-poo Indiana at all, and I'm here for it, but at the same time, should there not be some sort of regulation of that? You're not what's that?
The calendar needs to change.
Yeah, the calendar needs to change is correct.
The calendar needs to change.
Because not only that, but Indiana going to the Rose Bowl and winning and then immediately getting on a plane because they're like, we got to come home because we got recruits in the transfer portal that are probably Brock Schott, one of them, that are going to be on campus as soon as we land.
Yeah.
The
Hoover being the other one.
That's right. And then you've got Alberto Mendoza. You got to wonder what his future is, right?
Yeah, you heard what Sean McDonough said on that telecast on Friday night, right? That he was wondering if, like, for the Mendozas would be upset or if Alberto would be upset about.
Well, they looked upset. Not like angry upset, but disappointed. It looked at one point. I'm curious if I'm the only one that noticed this. Someone text me if you noticed this. 523-9288, my cell phone number. Am I the only one that noticed that late in that game, they showed Mendoza's parents, and it looked like they were like getting a second wind of excitement once the game was well in hand because they were again, body language here, but it looked like they were anticipating and getting excited for Alberto Mendoza to also come in the game. And then when Fernando Mendoza ran back out on the field, they showed a camera shot, and his parents looked disappointed / frustrated. Now, that obviously went away with the euphoria of the win and everything else. I get it.
I was not one of these people, but there was a contingent of Hoosier fans up in the 300 level, at least, yelling for Alberto to come in.
I think a lot were because there was definitely an element of why put this at risk.
Yep.
Why? But I'm curious if anybody else noticed. Did anybody else notice that it looked like his parents were disappointed in that moment? Or am I the only one? Did I make that up in my mind?
We can discuss this later, but I have a question for you, Jake. But is what IU could do on Monday night by winning the national championship, could it actually be bad for college football?
Fair. I see where you're going with that. Stephen Holder can give us perspective, and we'll get into that. Stephen Holder can give us perspective on the Miami side of things because he's a graduate of the U. He knows football, and he knows Miami. We'll talk to him about that and more next. Hey, Jake Query for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripes. Listen, you love iced tea, don't you? You love lemonade, and you like either of them with a little splash and a kick. That's exactly what you get from Surfside. Iced tea and vodka, variety of flavors, new flavors coming out for the new year, and lemonade and vodka. And, of course, with just that little splash of vodka and no carbonation, so easy, so smooth to drink, so easy to enjoy, and just 100 calories and 2 grams of sugar. So a lot to love about Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripes wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Surfside, perfect for watching the game or whatever it is that you might be doing, but please enjoy it responsibly and please be 21.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Pacers and Raptors tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Pregame can be heard 6:30. It's the Pelicans on Friday at the Field House in the battle for the worst record in the league. Stephen Holder, who was at the Pacer game last night, joining now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. JavaHouse.com is the website. Jake25 is the discount code for 25% off. You can always type in to the search bar the name of this radio station, The Fan, and you will see the bundle that includes Colombian coffee, I should say, from Java House, as well as Wrangler Energy and their Liquid Science hydration beverage. But they've got all kinds of the Peel and Pour beverages that are awesome and instant at JavaHouse.com. Steven, I'm going to begin before we get to Colts with Miami, Indiana breakdown. Is that fair?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so you are a graduate of the University of Miami. You obviously know football as a football writer for ESPN.com. I would assume that you actively follow the Hurricanes probably each game this season. Fair assessment?
I have, yes.
Okay. So for this particular matchup, let's begin with this. Miami's strength, or the thing that Miami does, and in particular in the playoffs, better than other teams that has put them to this point, would be what?
So I think this showed up more than anything in the Ohio State game. If anybody watched that game, you will probably recall that Miami just dominated offensively, in particular at the line of scrimmage. They have this power run game that I think is their biggest potential edge against Indiana, because Indiana doesn't have weaknesses. That's the problem with playing them, right? How do you attack this team that does everything so well, or at least at a decent level? You know, I don't know that they do anything poorly where you would say, all right, well, that's where we got them. So, but I do think Miami has, a extremely formidable offensive line. They have very physical running backs, and they can play a game that no one in college really plays anymore. You know, college football is a spread offense, playing above the rim sort of game now, and they play can at times play a very old school brand of football offensively that has been very effective. And I think that's their go-to right here.
Do you, in the time that, Mario Cristobal, the head coach at Miami, is this style that you're talking about for Miami, aggression in the trenches, right? Like punch you in the mouth kind of play. Has that been Cristobal's MO, or is he adjusting to the personnel that he has been able to acquire?
So he likes this. I really do think that he prefers to play this style. In fact, it's interesting because I think they almost leaned too much into it earlier in the season, and I think it impacted them in those couple of losses they had, at least the SMU game in particular, because I thought they needed to open things up more offensively, right? And to be more aggressive offensively, because they do have makers on the outside as well. None more well known than Malachi Toney, the superb freshman wide receiver. And I actually thought they needed to actually utilize that more. And so down the stretch, when you saw Miami scoring 35, 40 points in those games at the end of the season, they were doing that. They were throwing the ball down the field more, throwing it more generally in general. And I thought that was good. But I think when you get to the playoffs, and depending on your matchups and who you're playing and what your strengths and weaknesses are, this has now come back full circle. And this plays right into Mario Cristobal's hands. I mean, he is a former offensive lineman. He played with those teams back in the day, the Jimmy Johnson teams that, while we might think of Michael Irvin and quarterbacks and things like that, I mean, they were a physical football team. And that's his brand of ball. So I love it. It's very old school, and I don't mind it at all.
Okay, Miami's area of susceptibility or vulnerability would be where?
Playing stupid. They make a lot of mistakes, or at least they can. They sometimes get out of character, and they will just do undisciplined things. They will have sort of late hits or just undisciplined stuff. And it's not an epidemic or anything. It's not the 1990s Canes, who did that repeatedly. But they do have to be on guard for that, because I just think Indiana is the kind of team, you do that and you're serving the game up on a platter for them. So I just think they have to be extremely disciplined, mistake-free, and you just got to play clean. You just got to. And this ties back into the first point, right, of that power football and power run game that they have. I think the benefit of that, if they can find success doing it, is that you keep the ball away from freaking Mendoza, because you don't want that guy with the ball in his hands. And so that also ties into this other point of playing disciplined and not getting behind the sticks offensively, long down and distance. If you do that, which they did at times in the Ole Miss game, they got in long down and distance situations, and then they can't necessarily rely on that big heavy run game. Then you have to sit back and throw the ball and hold the ball in the pocket to throw down the field, and you open yourself up to that defense. So anyway, that's kind of where I think I would look at Miami and say, like, if they do that, they lose.
Stephen Holder's my guest, ESPN.com, of course, where you read his work. He is on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Stephen, I know you had told me you're going to the game, correct?
I am. So okay. I don't put on my fan hat very often, but this is one of those rare times.
Okay, now let me ask you this, because we're going to play a little game here. You like money, right? You a fan of money?
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Money's a good thing.
So I'm going to make you some money here. Okay, you're going with how many buddies? How many people?
With two others.
So 3 of you total, and you're sitting in roughly what the 1 levels, the 3 levels. Where are we sitting here?
We are not in the cheap seats. We're in the good seats. We, it helps to know people. I'll just leave it at that. We're in the. I think we're down there in the corner, on the first level, end zone, sort of in the corner there, right by the tunnels. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking right here. Tickets right now in that section. Okay. You could sell your tickets right now if you're in section 129. They're going for $5,500 a piece. If you're in section 122 on the other side of the tunnels, you're looking at $6,400. So based on that, you're looking at $19,200 to sell your 3 tickets. I mean, what the hell? Why not sell it? Stop at Denny's, get something to eat, drive home, and then count your cash, buddy.
I mean, you're talking about paying the mortgage for damn near the year, right? I mean,
right.
That sounds pretty appealing now when you put it that way. So,
I mean.
It's complicated. I'll leave it at that. But it's definitely you make good points. Points were definitely made.
Okay, I'll put it to you this way. Truth serum here. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
You're walking in. This happened to a buddy of mine in the NBA Finals in 2000. Pacers, Lakers. Buddy of mine's walking in. This was 25 years ago, mind you. Okay. He and his dad are walking in. A guy stops him right there and goes, and he was from L.A., and says, I've got $10,000 cash right now, and I will pay you for your 2 tickets right here. That's back when you had paper tickets and everything else.
This is back in the ticket scalper days, right?
Correct. So you're walking in, and a guy stops you and says, you got 3 tickets? And you go, yeah. And he says, listen, I got my Ticketmaster app right here, or whatever, app. So you can transfer me the tickets from your phone to my phone right now, and I've got sitting right here $18,000 in cash in my pocket. Do you do it?
I think I lean toward doing it. My friends would have to make their own decision. I decide for my ticket. They would have to decide on theirs, since I've
it's pretty tempting, man.
Facilitated tickets, so. They'll have to decide.
I mean, it's like playing roulette, though, because if your team wins and you're not there, you'd be like, oh, man, I would have been given anything to be in that stadium. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I get it. It's funny because I know this is awful to say, right? This is awful to say. I think when you do when you're in our line of work, and you know this as well as I do, right? When you're in our line of work, and we had this conversation, I think, at the Pacers game last night, right? Like, we so rarely get excited about going to a game. Don't get me wrong. I love my job. Like, I really love my job, okay? Like, I am lucky as hell to do what I do. However, when I roll up to Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday, I'm not like bouncing off the walls like, I can't wait for this game. Because I'm going to work, man. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I work hard and I care about what I do, and I'm glad the fans care a lot, because if they didn't care, then what the hell the purpose do I serve, right? But it is a very interesting thing. So like I know I have friends who would be like, "You're crazy. Are you on crack? You would do that?" And I'm kind of like, "Well, hear me out." and I just, I guess I can't relate, because I have been so divorced from the emotions of caring about a game.
Which is why,
so
Stephen, listen, it's like I said last year when the Pacers went to the finals. It has been so long, and I say this with all respect to the people listening to the show. You do get a little bit cynical, and I guess the better way of saying it is that sports becomes a little more antiseptic when you do it when you cover it for a living, because it does mute your fandom. And so that's why I will always be so grateful for that Pacers run, because it brought out for me a euphoria of sport that I had not allowed myself to enjoy for a long time. And it was nice to go back to that well.
I love that. That's a great way of putting it. It does become antiseptic. And I would say this: the last couple Miami games, I've watched them on TV. Some of these same friends I'm going with, they actually attended the last couple rounds, the Cotton Bowl and Fiesta Bowl, and I was invited, but the Colts being the Colts, I didn't know what was going to happen, and whatever.
You knew.
I did know. I actually did know. I knew they weren't getting fired, but I also was like, if there's a 1% chance and I'm not around, that's going to be my ass, right? So anyhow, I resisted the urge and I didn't go, and I watched on TV on the edge of my seat, and I hated myself for not being there, So I get what you're saying. This is kind of the same feelings with the Pacers that you had. And I am excited. Like, I'm really looking forward to it. And there's also the element of like seeing your college friends, and
of course,
like college, your college team doing something is different than your favorite pro team. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I see this. Last thing I'd say is that, I think it was back in the 2001, they win the championship. I didn't really enjoy that as a fan, because I was actually covering Miami in 2001. I was at the Rose Bowl and covered that game as a reporter. Half the fan base hated me because, when you'd write a negative story, you're not their favorite person in the world. There was a message board back in the day. This is hilarious. Back when college message boards were a big thing, there was someone on a Miami message board that started a rumor that I went to Florida State, which only tells me that I was really good at my job, that I was so good at covering this team impartially. They couldn't believe I went there.
It's like coaching a football team to such precision that people think that you hacked into an iCloud, right? Kind of the same thing.
I guess. Right?
Okay.
So, yeah, anyhow.
Stephen, let's switch gears to the NFL playoffs, okay? The games that we have seen, is there anything that we can take away? Because sometimes I think if you're Chris Ballard or you're Shane Steichen and you're on the sidelines and you're watching the games that are taking place, is there anything that it kind of tipped the hand to an area where you said, see, that proves where the Colts fell short, or that proves an area that needs to be improved upon, that perhaps even over the course of the regular season we didn't necessarily learn, when the style of play does turn up a wick a bit in the playoffs? What is the area that was exposed for Indianapolis that even more exemplifies its need to be addressed in the offseason?
Well, I think it's on defense. You got to get a stop when you need a stop, man. And, there's particularly when you get into these postseason games where you have elite quarterbacks that you're dealing with, all of that. I just think, when you see you had the defensive breakdowns in these games, they were very decisive. I look at maybe the Bears and Packers, for example. The Packers, if they have Micah Parsons, I think they win that game, right? I'm sorry. I think if the Packers have Micah Parsons, I think they win that game because there was just in that fourth quarter they just needed like one stop. You know what I mean? And they just couldn't get it. They couldn't stop the bleeding. You've got to have a defense that can just get off the field when all the chips are down. So much has to happen offensively. You know, the quarterback has to be protected. You have to get just right, the just perfect connection with the receiver. The blocking scheme has to be perfect. I mean, so much has to go right on offense for you to go down and have a clutch winning touchdown drive or something. But on defense, sometimes you just got to make one play, man. You know, can you make that third down or fourth down stop? You do that, you win the game. It's over, you know, in many of these cases. And I think if you go back and look at the Colts down the stretch, take a look at that the Kansas City game comes to mind. The Seattle game, more than anything, I think comes to mind. Those fourth quarters, all you needed was one stop, and you change your season. They're probably in the playoffs if they get two stops, one in the Kansas City game, one in the Seattle game. They're in the freaking playoffs, period. Now, do they win in the playoffs? I don't know. But I'm just saying, do you see how that changes your outcomes, right? You got to have a defense that you can count on.
Okay, I want to know of these quarterbacks, speaking of defenses that need to get a stop, I'm going to list the quarterbacks that are remaining in the postseason, and I want you to tell me which one you least trust if the game's on the line and they got to take you down the field. You ready?
All right.
Caleb Williams, Drake May, Matt Stafford, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen. I'm missing one. Who am I missing, Eddie? Help me out.
Did you say
AFC remaining? I think what's that?
Did you say Bo Nix?
Bo Nix, thank you. I keep forgetting Denver. Okay, so there's your list. Which of those quarterbacks do you least trust? Or do you have the biggest question mark about?
Least trust. This is tricky. I like them all to some degree. C.J. Stroud is. I don't know what's going on there. I'm not loving C.J. Stroud right now, but I think he has more track record built up though than maybe Bo Nix. Even though I know how that sounds, right? They're the number one seed. They had, I think, a pretty productive offense all year. I'm not saying they have a bad offense. All I'm saying is, have we seen Bo Nix go down the field and have to win a playoff game, right? I mean, that's a different ask, I guess is what I'm getting at, you know? So we'll see. I don't know, but I want to see if he can do it. This is going to be a big test for him, and I'm interested to see him in it. But the Texans offensively, I don't know. They've got to figure some things out.
But listen,
because
the way that defense is playing, Steven, I mean,
yeah, I know
that defense is playing at an exceptionally high level. I mean, that is a nasty defense.
It's a championship defense.
It is.
It's a championship defense. I don't disagree with you. It may not matter. You're right. It may not matter if you're just asking about the quarterback. Then maybe it's a different answer. But when you ask that question in the context of that Houston defense, that is a championship defense. They put Aaron Rodgers out to pasture last night. I really feel that way.
Why is San Francisco able to overcome injury and continue to produce, even with injuries at key areas all across the board, and teams like Indianapolis are not?
Okay, this is a great question because this has been talked about a lot, and I think there's a lot to chew on here. So the first thing is they did survive the Brock Purdy injury, which was multiple weeks. They did survive that. The difference, I think, with them is they had a very formidable number 2 quarterback in Mac Jones, who was a first-round pick, who has won games in the NFL, and you coupled him with a lot of playmakers on offense and an excellent offensive coach, and it makes sense why that worked, right? They still had a highly productive offense with Mac Jones in the lineup. The Colts, obviously, they were missing their top 2 quarterbacks. So I think that's an important distinction. It's not an excuse, but if we're asking what's the difference, well, that's a huge difference, right? That's one thing. The other thing is I just think the 49ers are the exception to the rule. Normally, any team, not just the Colts, teams that have that level of injury in a given season, they do not do what the 49ers have done. It's more a credit to the 49ers than I think it is a reflection of other teams that didn't overcome their injuries. Generally speaking, teams that lose all their best players, they suck. The 49ers keep overcoming it. I think they are the exception, and they are one of the great franchises in the league right now. Look at their consistency. They have been in the mix for the Super Bowl for the most part in the last 6 years, to some degree, with a couple exceptions, but they've been in the mix for most of the past 6 years. And that's remarkable. And that's with different quarterbacks. That is, with a transition with their offensive line is a lot of their offensive lines change, all of that, so there's good coaching happening for sure. Kyle Shanahan is the elite of the elite. They have drafted very well, and they have just gotten the most out of that roster. I think it's a credit to them. That's the best I can tell you. They just do a great job.
By the way, in conclusion, Stephen, last night I believe I asked you a trivia question as it relates to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and then we got distracted, and I don't know that I ever gave you the answer to the question.
What was it again? I can't remember. Was this the one about the? No, tell me again.
The only member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. When you go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the Shrine Room, you've been to the Shrine Room there, right, in Canton?
I have, yes.
And I have been also to the, I think they call it the Gallery in Cooperstown, where the plaques are. And
yeah,
the Cooperstown plaques to me were very underwhelming. I don't know why, but I anticipated them being much bigger per player. And they're not. It was surprising to me, but nonetheless, the Shrine Room in Canton really is fabulous. I mean, you go in and it's pretty it's almost like you want to be quiet when you're in there. It's just that
I agree. I think the Football Hall of Fame, and I haven't been to Cooperstown in like 20 years, so I could be wrong about this, but my recollection is that I was more struck by the Pro Football Hall of Fame than I was at the Baseball Hall of Fame.
The basketball,
the enormity of it felt bigger.
I've been to the basketball one also, and that more just felt like a. It was. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this, but it was more like an interactive thing for kids about the game of basketball than it was. But the Shrine Room is very impressive. So you go in, and it has different ways that you can look up the enshrinees in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, including place of birth. And I was surprised to see that there is only one member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame who was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I don't think I ever gave you the answer.
You did not. And I do not know the answer to this, and I feel like I should, but I'm dying to know.
Well, here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to turn on your radio because as soon as we hang up, because I'm going to tell everybody on the other side. How's that?
All right, fair enough.
Right.
That's very clever of you.
I do what I can, Stephen.
Hey, listen, you got to get those ratings up, baby.
You know the drill. All right, Stephen, appreciate it. Enjoy going home to Miami and watching the game, and enjoy watching Indiana win their first national championship.
We'll see what happens, but it very well could be. I will say, hey, fun fact, by the way, the last time I walked through that Shrine Room, this is why my job is cool. The last time I walked through that Shrine Room was with Tony Dungy.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That is very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate it, Stephen. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you soon.
All right. Stephen Holder joining us here on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. All right. So I will tell you, the only Hall of Famer, I've mentioned it before, born in Indianapolis, Indiana. And we will get into Eddie's question. It would be fabulous if Indiana wins on Monday night, but would it be bad for college football? He'll elaborate on his thinking next.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Eddie, you have or have not been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
I have not.
It really is worth driving over for. I mean, it's funny because when you go into it, you walk in, and as soon as you walk into the facility, the first room that you go into is the shrine room.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dimly lit with spotlights on the busts of all of the Hall of Famers. And they have like touch screens where you can look up the bios. And I mean, it's very impressive. Now, the rest of it is somewhat almost like dilapidated. Like there's a little bit of, and it is not just the NFL Hall of Fame. It's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So it has things in there talking about the Canadian League and, all kinds of different things. But it has a fabulous, goes without saying, gift shop. I mean, you could go, it's worth the drive over just to go to the gift shop because you could buy it literally, you know what I mean? You want to buy a thimble with the Chiefs logo on it, they got it. I mean, they have everything there. But when you go through, the one thing that you see among the busts, the following player. He spent the majority of his career with the Minnesota Vikings and also played for the Atlanta Falcons and the San Francisco 49ers. An 8-time Pro Bowl selection, 3-time first-team All-Pro, recording 150 and a half career sacks, a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the class of 2002. He passed away in 2020 at the age of 58 in Duluth, Georgia. Went to high school in York, Pennsylvania, college at the University of Pittsburgh, the 4th overall pick in the 85 draft, but born on October the 16th, 1961 in Indianapolis, Indiana, Chris Dolman of the Vikings, primarily of the Vikings. Chris Dolman. When I entered it in, at least at the time that I was there, the only member of the Hall of Fame born in Indianapolis. He had brain surgery in 2018, later diagnosed with glioblastoma, and passed away at the age of 58. Honored prior to the kickoff at Super Bowl, the Super Bowl 5 days later. So there you go, Chris Dolman, the late, great Chris Dolman, born in Indianapolis. Okay, Eddie, you were saying your question about Indiana if they were to win come Monday night.
Obviously, it would be great for the local rooting interest here in the state of Indiana and fellow Hoosiers across the country, just because of the fact that this is something that, nobody ever thought they would say, that Indiana is not only playing in the college football playoff championship game, that they are the champions. And they were the best team in college football, this season, and the first undefeated team in the history of college football in this new format. And on the year is 50 years of the celebration of, as you've highlighted, of basketball going undefeated. Got me thinking if it would actually be bad for college football if a team like Indiana won it, and not in the aspect of it's Indiana winning, in the aspect of how they've done it. Like, it's been 2 years for Kurt Cignetti to do this, and if you're a team that's like Florida, for example, you've got a large fan base, you have a large alumni association with a lot of history in the football program itself. You look at Alabama and the history that they have had in their football program, especially recently under Nick Saban, and is it going to start creating unrealistic expectations for some of these schools that have the big NIL budget, that have the history of football and being really good and competitive among one of the best in the country, that they can't get it right in the nature and as quick as Indiana did with a guy who was from James Madison?
The answer is, I think, to an extent, yes.
And we're going to see constant change almost every 2 to 3 years.
That's the thing.
And these coaches aren't going to get a chance to build up anything.
Here is what I think is going to be the biggest question mark. And you're correct. It works two ways, Eddie. I think there are a lot of schools that are going to look at it and say, wait a minute. We are the Ohio State University. We are Clemson. We are Texas. We are Michigan. We are USC. We are football schools. We are football schools that invest in football, believe in football, live and die by football. So how in the world did plucky, feel sorry for them, Indiana come swooping in? Well, then they diagnose it, and you do the autopsy. You say, okay, several things had to come into play here. Number one, very good strategy by their athletic director and their president to say, and you know what? Kudos to Tom Allen for saying, even though I think towards the end this wasn't the main culprit, but Tom Allen was very open to anybody that would listen to it about his critique that Indiana did not financially invest in football the way that other teams did. And you heard when we had Dave Revson on, and he talked about the story of Jerry DiNardo piping in crowd noise with speakers before they went to Oregon some 20 years ago, and won, by the way, and the university then saying, well, who's going to pay for the speakers? You know, those sorts of things. Indiana finally said with Scott Dolson and Pam Whitten, like, football, they figured out football's the breadwinner. It's great to be a basketball school, but that doesn't pay the bills. Football does. So they went out and did it. What Indiana did, as I've mentioned many, many times, is they got out in front of it and anticipated. I remember having a conversation with somebody at Indiana before the NIL thing got full clearance. And it was like, look, Indiana's ready to go. They got a war chest ready to go. And they're going to be able to figure out how to navigate this new system. And I'm sure Cignetti was a big part of that when Cignetti came in and said, everything here has to change. Everything. We have to literally turn this thing upside down.
NFL roster build type.
Correct.
Versus I want to go get the best player to come play for me.
Now, here is where, Eddie, this gets interesting. Because you're correct in that, right? Does Indiana, there are two sides of this question mark moving forward. The first is this. Indiana's blueprint. How does it change now? Indiana can say all they want that they've never wanted 5 stars. Guess what? It's because 5 stars never wanted Indiana. Right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. Like, it's not like, you know, the Under Armour All-American game that it wasn't like 2 years ago. People were like, he'll be choosing between Indiana, Miami, Alabama, and USC. No. So now that Indiana has elevated its profile and it is perhaps on the radar or in play for elite blue chip high school talent, does that change Indiana's tune about those players? Now, you would say likely not. You use them as accentuation, but you don't lean on those players. But at the same time, it's a balancing act because if you are getting a 5-star kid out of Stone Mountain, Georgia, or DeSalle High School in Coronado, California.
Or even locally, Monchon Sales at Lawrence North. He's a 5-star recruit.
So if he's coming in and you're saying, okay, we have that kid, but we also have a 23-year-old transfer from Kansas State that had 900 yards receiving last year, you may only have a year to get minutes out of that 5-star before he says, you know what? I got Kansas State offering me $1.5 million for next year or whatever it may be. I think the more fascinating thing is going to be this. And I'm going to sound like an old man yelling at clouds, I realize. Mark Cuban has essentially endless money. $15 million to Mark Cuban is literally a pop, a bag of combos, and a Powerball ticket at the gas station. But even people with that kind of wealth, or even people that are boosters of Michigan or Alabama, but let's even go a step further and say the Minnesotas, the Mississippi States, the San Jose States of the world. How many times can you go to the same car dealer and say, hey, I know last year we asked you for $80,000 because there was a quarterback we really wanted that was a transfer from, UC Santa Barbara because they phased out their program. And he was really good for us, and we went 7-6, and that was cool. And hopefully you enjoyed your stop at the Hawaiian Punch Bowl. But we need $100,000 this year because we got a guy. Now last year that guy was good, but we got a guy this year that's coming from UTEP, and they actually played in the Little Caesars Bowl, and so we need $100,000 this year. But then that kid transfers after a year, and then you go back to that guy and you go, it's now going to be $150,000. I mean, eventually, Eddie, because. And I know television money is a huge revenue source, okay? But television money also, through Title IX, is helping to pay the scholarships for the cross-country runners and the volleyball team and the girls' swimming team and everything else. The NIL collectives, as long as you are going to bowl games and championship games and making these runs, theoretically, people are going to continue to pay into that hopper. But even success eventually look at Alabama. Alabama, why were there no Alabama fans at the Rose Bowl? Because they've been there 100 times. I mean, it's far for them to travel, but not much further than Indiana, but they've been there 100 times. And Alabama fans are like, yeah, I mean, wake me up when we get to the Final Four. You know, and same reason why, I mean, Indiana travels really well for the NCAA tournament, but for years there, you know, certain schools, they didn't have a huge turnout in the opening round of the NCAA tournament because they're like, yeah, I'm going to go to the Final Four. I'm going to save my money for that. And the same is true of when you start getting regular success within the NIL era, eventually people are going to be like, yeah, I'm accustomed to this, man. Like the thrill and the excitement and the chasing of the high of can we get to the next level? I keep writing checks for you. That's what's going to be interesting. I do think that Indiana has broken the mold a little bit on how you build a program, Eddie, to your point of when you say, is it going to be bad for college football? I don't know that it's going to be bad for college football, but I do think there's a group of people it's going to be bad for if Indiana wins. I do think there's a group of people that it's going to be bad for if Indiana wins, which we'll get into on the other side. And Scott Agnes joins us in 19.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, this band, by the way, Eddie, falls into a Jake Query fun category that I've brought up before.
And a fun fact from yours truly.
What fun fact do you have about ZZ Top?
If you go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they are the last band listed.
Nice. And presumably will be for the rest of time, right?
Unless there's like ZZZ. I don't know.
You know, that if somebody would come up with a band name that is sleep, you know, the Eagles. The Eagles could be rebranded as Triple Z because they put you to sleep. It's sleepy music, right?
Excuse me?
Mm-hmm. I think the Eagles are sleepy. Laura Steele and I once had a furious debate about this. I think the Eagles are sleepy.
Did she say?
You're crazy. Are you on crack?
That actually sounded like Steven and the Helium version, right?
Not really. That was just today.
So ponder this question while I tell you my point about who I think it's going to hurt for Indiana. Ponder this question. The band or artist that you most enjoy, but strangely have never paid for. In other words, you've never bought. I mean, back in the day, I realize now you just download everything. Or you stream everything. But a band that you never owned a tape, CD, whatever else, and you've also never gone to see them in concert, but whenever they come on, you're like, yeah, I like all their songs. ZZ Top might be that band for me. I think they played Carb Day once. I wasn't there for that. I've never bought a CD, tape, album, whatever else. Never seen them in concert. But they're cool. I kind of dig their tunes. So think about who that is for you, Eddie. I think when it comes to the direction of college football now, and it's not going to harm. There are always going to be the same number of seats at the table. I get that. But in terms of players coming out of high school, I feel like at least temporarily, because it's a copycat game. It always has been. And things are cyclical. You know, you get a team that there's always a cycle in sports where you're like, this team is a dynasty. Florida had it with Urban Meyer. And then it was Alabama forever. And then it was kind of Clemson's turn at the wheel very briefly. And we thought it was going to be Ohio State. And maybe still they're going to be there. I don't know. But the format of recruiting primarily and having recruiting services primarily be the top high school players, I think that maybe not forever, but in the short term here, get replaced by the portal. And the recruiting services that are analyzing the top players in college football and the top players in high school football, the first one might be the one now that gets more prioritized because people are like, hey, my program, we need a corner. We need a safety. We were really good last year, but our starting safety went to the pros or he transferred to Cal. So we need a safety.
Well, like Penn State, they just lost their top corner to Indiana.
Yes. Everybody seemingly is losing players to Indiana right now, right? Mm-hmm. But now when those schools are looking, Eddie, to replace those guys, instead of, hey, great opportunity for Johnny from, Mr. Football from West Virginia last year, it's more so great opportunity for the safety at West Virginia that's looking to transfer. The portal itself, and this is the real moral dilemma I have here. My college career, my freshman year, I went to University of Kansas. It was a disaster. 100% on me.
Yeah.
I was homesick. I was immature. So after my freshman year of University of Kansas, I transferred. I came home to Indianapolis, tail between my legs. First semester of what would have been my sophomore year, I didn't even go to school. I worked at Casey's Coffee and Tea in Clearwater.
Letter K, letter C?
What? Yep, just like Kansas City's, but it was for Ken and Kim Cole who owned it.
Got it.
So I was a barista, okay?
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Did you make chai teas?
I think I did. I can tell you how to make a latte, a cappuccino. It's a unique skill that I had. So I worked at Casey's Coffee and Tea to just kind of pick up the pieces from the disappointment of my freshman year. And then I ended up getting the job at the cigar store. But I worked the second semester. I went to IUPUI, kind of got my affairs in order, got my grade point average back up, and then did an inter-campus transfer from IUPUI to Indianapolis. From IUPUI, to Bloomington. Went to Bloomington. So now, basically, technically speaking, I'm on school number 3. And then ended up finishing 2 years ago via online through Indiana University. Nobody thought twice about what in the world is this world coming to? This guy's going to 3 schools in 3 years. I had to do those things because for my journey, I mean, part of it was my own mistakes, right? But to pick up the pieces on my journey and move forward to whatever else, those are the schools that it aligned with what was going to be best for me in those situations. And we unfairly say that a kid should not be able to play for 3 college football programs in a 4-year period or 4 in a 5-year period because they're milking the system and getting as much money. Okay. But wouldn't it be hypocritical of me as somebody who had to attend 3 different schools under 3 different scenarios to finally get the footing underneath me or get the experience necessary for my own maturation, my own journey? Wouldn't it be hypocritical of me to say that some kids shouldn't transfer 3 times if, in fact, that's going to monetarily and from an on-field performance be best for him or her if it's a female sport? I mean, why are we holding players to a different standard than we're holding normal students? Well, part of it because of the compensation. Mm-hmm. I get it. And I also understand, like the kid at Washington that goes to Washington as a quarterback, gets a huge NIL deal, and then immediately backs out of it. Well, that's between he and Washington. And if there was a contract he had signed or whatever else, that's on him or that's on the school or whatever.
He's going back to Washington because he doesn't want to go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Well, in the quarterback at Ole Miss.
Trinidad Chambliss.
I understand why he is lobbying for, and I understand both sides of it here. I mean, eventually you've got to say, okay, I mean, yeah, I have no problem with them putting a cap on, but you can only do this for X number of years.
Diego Pavia, though, got granted another year of eligibility, so I just don't know where the line is.
Right. And here's the thing for Chambliss, right? I totally understand why he wants to get another year of eligibility because he's looking at it saying, okay, I am a fringe NFL player. I'm probably a practice squad player. And I think he's a wonderful player, and he was really fun to watch in the postseason.
I think he's really good.
But he is good, but he's small, right? What's his size?
I don't know. I mean, he's got to be around Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees height?
I think he's 5'10", isn't he? I could be wrong.
Trinidad Chambliss listed at 6'1", 200 pounds.
Okay. Then that means he's 5'10". But if he is not going to be a lock and stock player, I mean, look, Eddie, Arch Manning made $8 million this year, right?
Yep.
Beck's making $6 million. Fernando Mendoza's making $3.5 million. Mendoza made more by transferring to Indiana than Brock Purdy made in probably his first 2 years in the NFL. So I totally understand why players are going to play the system and transfer as many times as possible if that's their best avenue to get that money. And in Chambliss's case, right, this is probably the best chance for him to get that money. More than he would get if he was going in and trying to scratch and claw his way through the NFL.
I think, and it's only going to get uglier, Jake, in this regard, just because of the fact that if this actually happens, earlier David Ubben of The Athletic reporting that the FBS head coaches have voted unanimously to expand the eligibility of redshirt years from 4 games to 9, meaning you can play fewer than 9 games and apply for a redshirt and most likely, get it. Like, how many players now? It's like, oh yeah, you see, my ankle hurts. I'm going to sit this one out,
right.
And I'm going to set out these 2 bye games so I can maintain my eligibility for another year, so I can secure another paycheck.
Yeah, you're right.
And where is it going to stop? Is the question.
I told you the Jake Query plan.
I know.
Freshman year, the school where I'm most comfortable and going to get opportunity that pays me handsomely. Sophomore year, throw my name in the portal. This is assuming, of course, that I'm having success as a player. Throw my name in the portal, create a frenzy, get my school to double my salary. Junior year, open season, baby. Bring it on. Whoever's paying me the most. Southwest Arizona. Okay, fine. That's where I'm going. They're giving me $4 million. Senior year, elite academic institution. You will agree to take all of my credits. I'm graduating from your school. You don't owe me a dime. And people can tell me all they want. Well, those schools wouldn't do that. Okay. Okay. Do you want to bet on that? I mean, it's a wild, wild west, man. But I also understand that it's a free market enterprise. It is. And as long as – and look, we love it. We love it. We love the game. The games are awesome. They're awesome. College football is awesome. There is nothing like a Saturday afternoon, that late October, the air is kind of crisp, going out and going into a bar or restaurant or something, and the mid-afternoon games are wrapping up, and there's a big night game under the lights. Awesome. Watching it, awesome.
To go back to what you were saying about the whole high school thing, Jake, with like recruits and, kind of getting glossed over. We were just talking about would Indiana, winning the college football playoff be bad for college football? Would that be good for college football? Where you're getting some of these young, really talented players going to teams that like Michigan State, for example, or some of these other Power 4, Power 5 schools that aren't typically good, and now they're getting these top recruits, and next thing you know, they're competing. And so, there's a deeper field to warrant an expansion in the college football playoff.
Here's what I think. I think what's going to happen is this. When you go to a Pacer game or a Reds game, and they say, all right, folks, it's more so you see this in baseball, and they bring out the 4 dots that are going to race, and each one represents the different, based on the make noise and level 2,
yes.
Your dots.
Yeah.
And so those dots are, one's way ahead, and then it falls back, and the crowd gets more excited, and they're racing up on the Jumbotron, and it's back and forth, back and forth.
Yep.
I really think that what we may enter into here is an era where you see 2 to 3 year eras for a bunch of different teams, because it's going to be based on who is able to load up via the transfer portal and the NIL payments to build an elite roster.
Yeah.
And they're able to push that elite roster in to see what they can do. And then they have to once that roster is done, they've got to wait like another 5 or 7 years to reload again once they can allocate all of that amount of money again. And I think it's very possible. And yes, it helps that Indiana has what may be the best coach in college football.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's very possible that you're going to see – look at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Texas Tech has all kinds of oil money. And Texas Tech has usurped Baylor, at least right now, Texas, and the schools out there, because they've got the oil money that's pushing in and they're just going out, and now they're that defense they had that's nasty, they're just adding pieces to it. Now Texas Tech is primed for next year. And one thinks that probably would last for a couple of years, and eventually the boosters are going to say, yeah, I'm going to sit out a couple of years, man. I'm good with it. I love going to those games, but, the kids got stuff going on now, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, all of a sudden, Oklahoma State goes, you know what? There's a void here. I mean, let's just go out. T. Boone Pickens isn't around anymore, but, you've got some boom. Arkansas.
Cade Cunningham, you got some money you can toss over here for football?
You know what I mean, though?
Yeah, I know you play basketball. You want to help support the football program?
Right. Or, Arkansas with the Walmart money. I mean, eventually, whatever it might be. All it takes. Stan Kroenke he married into the Walmart family. He's a huge sports fan. So what does he do? He owns everything now, sports-wise. He owns the Rams. He owns the Blues, I think. I mean, and he was in St. Louis, and then he moves out to Denver. And he's got the Avalanche. And I mean,
Crypto Jedi on your band question on the text line says Styx. My answer.
That's a good one.
My answer would be Rush.
Okay. Styx is a good one, and the guy from Big Daddy that Adam Sandler played would agree with you. Says they're the most underrated band. Scott Agnes joins us next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Thank you, by the way, to Cluster Truck for lunch today. We are fortunate enough to have them bring some by each Tuesday. Eddie, what'd you go with today?
I went with the barbecue chicken strips, and I didn't ask for tater tots. I got a side of them, so I want to thank Evan Sherrill for tossing those in because that's not going to be my lunch. It's just these tots, and then tomorrow's dinner is probably going to be those chicken strips.
By the way, not to say that I'm easily distracted, but I'm curious what's going on. JMV has parked his car in the parking lot, and I could see,
he's got his trunk wide open.
He's taking pictures of something.
Huh.
He's out there taking pictures
You
of
think
his
he's got a
parking
dead
job.
body in there?
I don't know what's going on. He's standing. He's gotten out of his car, and he's just standing, walking around aimlessly in the parking lot, snapping photos. I don't know if he's an insurance adjuster. What's going on here?
By the way, if you are using Cluster Truck and you spend over $25, you can get $5 off by using the code BIGFAN. And it's still undetermined if this game day special will be offered on Monday for the college football playoff championship game, but it will still be offered on Saturday and Sunday. So for your NFL playoff viewing party, if you so have one, 2 pizzas, pepperoni, classic, or I can even say this other word, 2 pounds of hand-breaded chicken strips for $29.99, and you can use code BIGFAN off of it, so you can get $5 off. It's just a nice bundle right there.
You could use that on Saturday if you're watching Indiana and Iowa. That game can be heard at 1 o'clock on WIBC, our sister station. Also, here on the Fan, 11:30 in the morning, Butler and Seton Hall on Saturday, and Purdue and USC at 6:30 in hoops. That game can be seen on Peacock, so perhaps Cluster Truck can be your companion for any of those. If you're thinking to yourself, Jack, it's going to take a lot of energy to watch those games, no problem. Get yourself a Wrangler Energy from Java House. JavaHouse.com. Peel and Port guest line is where we find Scott Agnes from Fieldhouse Files. Pacers last night, winners over the Boston Celtics, who had their city gold standard uniforms. Scott, I thought again, oddly enough, it's almost like this kind of band of misfits, to borrow a Fernando Mendoza term for the Pacers, is starting to kind of figure out some cohesiveness amongst themselves. Is it that, or is it the fact that they're playing teams like Boston with no Jaylen Brown?
I think, first of all, I start out as they've gotten many of their guys back, meaning the Pacers, right? Neesmith being out there, significant. Nembhard, when he's healthy, significant. Then I would go to the second point, whereas, look, you're facing the Celtics, who are without Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they've done a great job after the first month of the season of putting it together, although they've now lost 3 of 4. But I think you just find a Pacers team that's finally being able to establish something because they're not dealing with all these 10-day contracts or, those type of guys that are coming in and out, and they're leaning more heavily on the players we expected entering this season.
Last night in the game against Boston, I thought they got good play and good contribution from a couple of plays. Nembhard showed the ability, Scott, to hit shots when they needed it, but I thought last night he was a better facilitator than he was scorer. Are they better when Andrew Nembhard is serving that role as opposed to the shoot-first guy? Does that make sense?
It does, and I think so, because that's how this system is built. That's how Tyrese runs it, as the primary facilitator. And then what we normally have seen previously with this group, right, talking about Halliburton and company, is when they need it in the third or fourth quarter, then he turns it on. So he might go from 8 points to 25 because of a big fourth quarter. And so, I think the key thing is for Nembhard to be that facilitator, the organizer, especially with the way in which this team is set up and organized. The challenge is you need somebody to be Nembhard, and nobody has been really able to accomplish that.
Scott, who has most taken advantage of opportunity this year?
First name that came to mind was Jay Huff. Second is probably Johnny Furphy to me.
Okay, that's fair. I would put Jarris Walker at a even. In other words, he unfortunately, somebody asked me last night, it was a good way of saying it. I'm watching the game, and I get a text, and it just says, when is the fog going to lift off of Jarris Walker? And I thought that was a very good way of saying it, because when the fog does clear from time to time, he has shown flashes where you go, okay, like he's ready to take that next step. and then he kind of goes back to just being a guy. And I think I've come to the conclusion that Jarvis Walker may be a part of the future, but just as a guy, just a minute, a guy that goes out and gives you decent minutes but doesn't lift and or hurt you. But then there are other players that I feel like have probably regressed. Ben Shepherd is one of them in that category. Now, am I too harsh in saying that, in that Ben Shepherd, seemingly as there was more opportunity for him this year, has struggled? Am I being too critical?
No, I think that was true early on, but I think since the injury, since coming back a couple weeks ago from that calf sprain, we've started to see more of his old self, and he's getting more minutes, and he's knocking down shots. I think he's shooting better than 60% since coming back in the last 2 weeks from three-point range. Same, I would say, is true from Jarvis Walker. He went through an awful shooting slump. Jay Huff, too. And to me, it's probably no coincidence that these guys are hitting more shots now that things are more back to normal in terms of personnel. And because one of the big challenges is you're not just during that injury, not to beat this dead horse, but part of the issue is when these players are out, yes, you're losing them, but then other guys have to be forced into playing different roles or playing outside themselves, including Shepherd, who was starting quite a bit for a while, rather than playing his 14 to 20 minutes off the bench. And so I think in that role, yes, being the starter, he struggled. Now back and coming off the bench, playing with the reserve unit, I think we're seeing more of what we expected from him.
And I realize it's going to be in a very back-end role if he were to stay. In other words, bottom of the depth chart area here. But has Micah Potter played himself into, Scott, a role moving forward beyond this year?
I think absolutely. All spots are open from that center spot. And with him specifically, it's certainly the second or third big. I think right now, from what I would gather, it feels like Jay Huff would be your perfect backup center and Micah could be your third string, and you're still missing that number one.
Okay, now the question is, and I do believe, Scott, I said earlier, if you were to close your eyes, let's say next year, for the sake of my little experiment here, let's say the Pacers have a Christmas Day game next year, okay? The Pacers are going to play in New York on Christmas Day next year. So you get done opening the gifts, and you're sitting there, and you got your PJs on, and you're drinking your eggnog, and you turn it on.
Whoa. Did you feel that, Jake? Did you feel it?
Slight breeze coming?
Yeah.
It's our friend Robin the Genie. That is correct. I heard eggnog and I had to come into the room. Oh, Genie's like eggnog. I don't know if you knew that or not, Eddie. My question, I heard you talking about your Christmas Day scenario, so I have a question for Scott Agnes. Okay. Scott, you up for taking a question from Robin the Genie? He doesn't pay on his bets. I do it. Please wait.
Let's do it, Robin. I'm ready for you.
Okay. Here is my question for you, Scott. As you are getting ready to watch the game on Christmas Day next year, if the Pacers were playing, when they do the starting lineups, for $1 million, you have to answer now, is the starting center in that scenario next year currently on the Pacer roster?
I don't see it, Robin. No, I don't think so. I think that upgrade will have to come from the outside.
You may have noticed, in the Deal or No Deal at Pacer games, they have a new feature known as the Double or Nothing. I will give you double or nothing by saying this. Would you like to tell me what center you believe it may be that is starting for the Pacers next season?
Ooh, I think you should tell us that, Robin. Come on. I'd like Robin to tell me. He should know that one.
I do not actually make predictions. I simply pay for others. Okay, fair enough. I think now, I will tell you this. I will take the place of Robin here.
Okay.
Scott, I believe that it would be, and I'm just going to throw name. I keep hearing about, like, Zubac's name keeps coming up, right? That price tag seems to be a lot. A guy that I loved coming out of college, and I have no idea how accessible he would be, but I loved Mark Williams. That was
the first
player.
name that came to mind, too.
Totally.
Yep.
That style, and I have no idea what kind of shooter he is, but he's uber athletic, right?
Yeah, for sure. But there's some health concerns if you consider what the Lakers did, and that was take back the trade and decline it due to health there.
That's right. And I can't remember, what was it? Do you remember?
I believe it was lower back. Something with his back, I think.
Yeah, I mean, but that kind of, in other words, a very athletic gazelle type big. I mean, that's the game plan. But so I see that, and then I see Huff as the 15 to 20 minute, really nice rotational piece. I mean, I think Huff has shown that he's got some skill set there. Then the question becomes, okay, if you go with like Potter, for example, at your 3, does that mean that Isaiah Jackson becomes a power forward, or is he out?
That would suggest to me he would be out.
I would agree with that.
He's a guy. Let's go back to what I think your second question was. And I treat it with some comfort, or not comfort, with some understanding given his injury. And that is, I will never say that's an easy injury to come off of. But he's a guy I want to and need to see more from.
By the way, Eddie, do you happen to have the breaking news sounder? My apologies, Scott. Hang on just a second. Mike Tomlin is out in Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Steelers announcing, I believe, a mutual departure. I don't know, when we will get a list or a clarification on that. Eddie, is that correct?
This is from Ian Rappaport, Jake. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin has informed the team that he plans to step away from coaching. And Rapp also adds that he informed the team in a meeting. There has been a lot of steam lately, and I believe Pro Football Talk had this either a week or two ago, that there was a lot of interest between Mike Tomlin and moving to television, so that could be in the works as well.
Now, keep in mind, one of the things that the Steelers have always prided themselves on, preached a little bit, is the fact of stability and solidarity within their coaching position or their front office. He is just the third person to coach the Steelers since the Nixon administration. So, Chuck Noll, obviously Bill Cowher, and now Mike Tomlin. But that's a big one, and we'll see what happens with that. We'll get more into that later. Scott, back into the conversation. Jackson for me, and I feel bad because, and the one thing that worries me as well is and I know Jackson is hurt currently, Isaiah Jackson for the Pacers, but different skill set of where it's needed perhaps. But considering that he is coming off of the same injury that Tyrese Halliburton is right now wading through, Jackson, to me, seemed to have lost some of his burst or athleticism, at least to this point, and that worries me a little bit about Halliburton. But is that apples to oranges?
I think it's a little bit apples to oranges. I haven't seen as much of a decrease in him unable to be himself as much as just lack of productivity. And for a guy that's in year 5, Jake, the foul issues is still a thing. I've realized in my years covering this league, bigs are slower to develop than any other player. You have to give them 2 or 3 years, but you're now in year 5. You don't want to be dealing and still having these issues where your starting center has 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And so it's those little things that bother me much more than a lack of burst or anything like that. I don't see that as much as just the productivity is not there for a guy who knows this system and this team.
Okay. And Scott, I apologize for asking. Scott Agnes, my guest, Java House, Peel and Port guest line. He's with Fieldhouse Files. Scott, when is the trade deadline?
You have about less than a month here coming up.
So what is is it before or after Valentine's Day? Let me ask you that.
It's before. It's a week before, February 6th.
Okay.
February 5th. I'm sorry, February 5th at 3 p.m. Eastern.
So let's just say hypothetically that on Valentine's Day, you decide to go out for dinner. And you walk in and you see a Pacer player who's enjoying a Valentine's Day dinner. And you're like, well, that's wonderful. I'm assuming they're not playing on Valentine's Day night. And that player is Ben Mathurin. Would you be stunned to see him in Indianapolis at that time?
I would not, no. Just because the Pacers have options, and also former lottery pick, a guy that is productive, that you don't just trade for anything out there. But it's definitely something to watch.
Okay, because I think, Scott, and I keep saying this, you tell me it sounds like you might disagree. To me, Mathurin is the piece they will use to try to get themselves a center.
It might have to be if you're trying to do it via trade, absolutely. But you also have the advantage of time here in that, look, this is not a championship or maybe even a playoff team this season, so it doesn't necessarily have to be done at the trade deadline. Mathurin will be a restricted free agent, which gives the team more control potentially than usual and an unrestricted this summer. But yes, that would be he'd be the player I think that would be available that they could get the most for. If they could reach a deal. And you mentioned Zubac earlier. I don't think his contract's too bad at all. I think it's about $20 million. That's below the going rate for a starting center right now. And Mark Williams will need a new contract. I looked that up, and so that's something to consider in that front.
Scott, I kind of push back on the notion of they could wait with trading Mathurin because you mentioned he's a restricted free agent. Look at how that played out for Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors. Look how it played out for DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns. Like, it just hasn't worked out league-wide between players and that team. So I just feel like, it's better off for the Pacers to trade Mathurin now because I think the value of Mathurin, even though he is injured, is probably going to be higher right now than it would be if you let him get to, that restricted free agency because there could be a team out there that signs him to an offer that the Pacers may not be willing to make, and either they're going to let him walk for nothing or they're kind of going to get their hands caught behind their back a little bit and tied and forced to sign into a contract they don't want to sign him to. And then you're kind of stuck with that awful contract potentially, and you may not be able to get then what you could now.
Yeah, there's several things to that. First of all, since the new collective bargaining agreement several years ago, restricted free agency, what we have seen has heavily favored the teams. And so in terms of other teams not really having cap space like we saw this past summer, which is why there was not much of a market for Kuminga. So that would be advantageous to sign Mathurin at a lower number than maybe you would expect or he would like. Yet at the same time, another thing you could consider is a sign and trade. The Pacers did that with Malcolm Brogdon, receiving him from the Bucks and sent a couple of picks to the Bucks, who wanted to move on from Brogdon anyway. But that said, I think there's also a lot to say in terms of if you don't have plans for a player moving forward, then you don't want to keep around an unhappy player, which is, I think, the primary thing you're getting at. And that's not to say, by the way, Mathurin's unhappy or not. I don't think so either way. But I did take note, like many probably, that his Instagram photo is now black, that he has nothing in his profile. I don't know what that means, if anything, but it's something of note with him as he currently sits out with multiple injuries. And I think that was probably the right move for him ultimately here. Is not have to. He's in a contract year, so he feels the need and the desire to play. But turf toe's awful. Right sprain has definitely impacted his thumb and his shooting hand, and so it's good right now that he's also sitting out for himself and for the team.
Scott, can you briefly, and I'm going to throw you a curveball here, and I apologize, Scott Agnes of Fieldhouse Files, but I know that there is an ongoing labor negotiation discussion within the WNBA that has hit like a couple of temporary stalls and then seems progress and then step back. Where do things stand in 30 seconds or less of a synopsis there?
Yeah, so right now there has been no progress toward an agreement between the WNBA Players Association and the league. They've renewed, if you will, for a short-term situation, the collective bargaining agreement a couple different times. That last one expired January 9th. In the meantime, since then, they decided not to continue it on. The league and the players have agreed to a moratorium where no other deals can be signed because there was some fear some players might sign new deals, but those would be covered in the old collective bargaining agreement. That would be favored. So right now, this is all stalled out, and there's no real clarity on when this might get done.
You going to Miami?
I am, yes.
Were you in the Peach Bowl?
Yes, as well as the Rose Bowl.
Okay, so between the Rose Bowl and the Peach Bowl, which one had the larger percentage of Indiana fans?
Easily the Peach Bowl.
Okay, and you anticipate that percentage to be what for the national championship game? 50-50?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think it'll be slightly more Indiana fans just because the newness of this and how everybody is bought in to this situation. And I think you're going to have some Miami fans that get tickets and go, hey, look, I'll just watch it from home. I can do the tailgating, and then I'll go home and pay for my mortgage for 4 months.
That's fair. That's fair. Do they win?
I think so. Everything we've seen from this group. The thing, Jake, that's been most impressive to me is not even the on-field results. It's the new characteristics. It's the standard. It's the discipline. Although it was not the case this last game, it's the lack of penalties and in the bonehead plays that we have seen in the past. And that stuff has mostly gone away since Cignetti got here.
Yeah. Bonehead plays was the motto of Indiana football for like 100 years, right? All right. Well, Scott, cheer them on. It's going to be exciting, obviously, Monday. We'll probably talk to you before then, but certainly appreciate the time. Pacers in action again tomorrow night. Raptors, that will be here at the Fieldhouse. Appreciate it, Scott.
You bet. Thanks, Jake.
Scott Agnes joining us. Back to that Mike Tomlin situation, Eddie. That means now, let's go off the top of our heads here, okay? Coaching vacancies. You have Baltimore looking. You have the Giants looking. You have the Steelers looking.
Vegas.
Arizona. Is that right?
Arizona.
Okay. Vegas. Who else?
Atlanta.
Okay.
Do you have the Giants on there already? Yes.
Yeah. Jets
Miami?
haven't made a move yet, right?
Jets are sticking with Aaron Glenn. The Dolphins.
Okay.
Cleveland. The Browns. So 3 of the 4 teams in the AFC North will be fresh coaches next year.
You wonder.
Tennessee, the Titans, they're on that list as well.
Does this in any way?
And the Chargers fired Greg Roman, their offensive coordinator, and their offensive line coach today, too.
So you have 9 vacancies right now, correct?
Yes.
Nearly 1/4 of the league. I would have to look. That seems like a high number. Do you think there's any chance that factored into the thought process from Carly Ursay-Gordon about whether or not changes could be made this year for Indianapolis?
Probably not. I mean, she said that she had her mind made up before the finale.
Understood.
She had told the coaches before that.
Understood. But, I mean, is there any, people in elite position, people in coaching situations, business situations, ownership, whatever it might be, they don't necessarily make their money based on acumen of the now. Oftentimes, they make their money based on anticipation of the future. And is it possible that there was an inventory done or a speculation or an analysis done through an inventory done league-wide of assessment where she said, you know what? Right now, knowing that we have no first-round pick the next 2 years and knowing that we have question marks at the quarterback spot and knowing that we are in a division with a rising Houston Texans and a competent Jacksonville Jaguars, maybe it's in my best interest to wait a year where we get a higher waiver order, if you will, a pecking order for a coach that would be available and general manager.
Maybe, but I go back to what I said, I think it was last week when Miami ultimately, they were going to stick with Mike McDaniel as their head coach and try to find a GM to marry the two together. And at the end of the day, they started conducting these interviews and they ended up realizing that most of these GM candidates probably did not want to retain Mike McDaniel and it was going to limit them in terms of who they wanted to potentially hire. And so they ultimately part ways with Mike McDaniel. And I would have to do some research on this. I can't tell you, Jake. I don't know if you may be able to recall the last time we witnessed a franchise fire just the general manager, but keep the head coach on. Like, would it be the Colts the last time? Would they be the last team that did it when they retained Chuck Pagano, but got rid of Ryan Grigson? And then they brought in Chris Ballard for 1 year with Chuck Pagano? Like, is that the last time we've seen it? Because you don't see it anymore. You see the two tied at the hip. And so did Carly Ursay-Gordon be like, yeah, let's see. I don't want to do that. Like, I feel like you may have a coach in Shane Steichen, and so you're kind of forced to stick with Chris Ballard for another season.
Yeah, I do feel like of the two, I really do think this. I think of the two right now, like there's more ceiling to Shane Steichen. I think there's room for growth there, but I think overall, I like Steichen. Now, is he a little bit hampered by having to also call plays, et cetera? Maybe. But I like him. And, with Ballard, I don't think that I'm talking too much out of school here by saying that, and I don't think that I'm misrepresenting the pulse of the fan base and saying, do I think Chris Ballard has competency? Of course I do. I don't think he's a bumbling idiot by any stretch. And do I think that he's had some bad luck or some curveballs thrown his way? Yes. But I mean, at some point you just have to say, how long is too long here? How long do you go with it? Mike Tomlin is kind of in the same category. I mean, I like Mike Tomlin a lot. I think he's a good coach. But how many years in a row now has Pittsburgh just kind of been hanging right there in the middle, right?
He ties, I think, Marvin Lewis for the longest playoff losing streak. He's lost their last 7 games.
And I know that the big calling card for him is that he's never been under 500.
Yep.
But
Never.
for the last handful of years, it feels like he's hardly ever, 2 games or more over it, right? I mean, that's the one challenge there. Now, another question regarding Mike McDaniel. Eddie, you might as well go ahead and cue up like ragtime music. Cue up some Scott Joplin. Cue up some Glenn Miller Band. Because what I'm about to say next is going to make me the oldest I've ever sounded on this radio station. I promise.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Okay. All of us go through this. Not all. I mean, I'm fortunate in this regard, but you have some moment of epiphany in your adulthood that you realize, gosh, my elders got really smart. They were smarter than I thought. Whether it's a parent, a coach, a boss, whatever it might be. Now, it's taken a long time for me to come to this epiphany or the realization of the possibility of accuracy here. But years ago, when I was working at Channel 6, and I was I was not an on-the-air guy. I was kind of a behind-the-scenes editor, mixing coffee, tearing scripts, whatever it might be. I was in my early 20s.
So you were me of this radio station.
Kind of, yeah. Like you, I did, whatever was needed, I was happy to do it and whatever else. And I loved every minute of it. Now, that's probably different than you because I don't know that you love every minute of being with me, but you get what I'm saying.
I know you love being with me every possible second, Jake. That's why you get out of that chair and come over here and talk to me every break.
I do. So I'm sitting there and...
That or you're trying to get me to smell you.
I have on a Joe Malone today, which is a lime-based cologne. Did you notice it?
I have not noticed it, no.
I'm not going to lie to you. I just put my wrist up to my nose. I'm just going to sit here and arouse myself.
Okay.
That is tremendous. Wow. Well, I'll tell you what.
You're legitimately just, are you trying to get high off yourself over there?
Well, no, trust me, there's a natural effervescent high that comes just through my own.
Okay.
The best thing about being me, do you know the best thing about being Jake Query? I get to be around Jake Query every day.
Mm.
So at any rate.
I'll send that to Shannon and see what she has to say about that.
So she likes my natural pheromones. So my dad says to me one day, are you getting ready to go to work? And I said, yeah. I think I was living at home at the time. I was a younger guy. And he says, dressed like that? I said, well, Dad, I'm in like a dungeon, like nobody even sees me. I'm just editing tape all day, like no one sees me. And I was wearing, jeans and a sweatshirt or whatever. And he said, but what if they did? And I thought, he has no idea what he's talking about. And we live in, today's day and world, very few people wear a suit and tie anymore. I mean, I get it. It's definitely a more casual workplace. And certainly in our line of work, I'm wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, a T-shirt today. We're not in the office complex and setting. But at the time that my dad said it, I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. And now I'm older, and I think it's funny how my dad's gotten smarter. I look at Mike McDaniel. Now, Mike McDaniel, in his 4 years in Miami, 9-8, went to the playoffs, lost in a wild card game. 11-6, went to the playoffs, lost in the wild card game. 8-9 and 7-10. Yes, obviously the last 2 years they've dropped off considering the first two. And only people that are down there would know, and what care do we have in Indianapolis, Indiana about the Miami Dolphins, right? Except for this. Would Mike McDaniel still have his gig or be taken more seriously if his presentation was different? How much of the way that he presented himself, both just kind of his eccentricities, but also his kind of dressing like a slob. I mean, standing on the more often than not, if you're familiar with Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, it's not for the deep runs or the accomplishments of the Miami Dolphins over the last number of years. It's that you've seen him in memes or GIF or whatever he uses and things like that as the poster child of the sloppiness of coaches on the sideline. The antithesis of Tom Landry. I'm not saying you got to be Tom Landry, but the different coaches that, Tony Dungy at least wore like a sweater vest and, and khaki pants.
I watched the Elway documentary, and there was a coach wearing suit and tie. I can't remember who it was.
It was probably Tom Landry.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And a hat.
Yes.
I mean, think about, Lombardi. The hell's going on out there? He's wearing his coat, right? And his hat.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you need to do that. I mean, I get it. But McDaniel took it to a whole nother level. I mean, he's wearing sweatpants like pulled halfway up like capri pants, and his hair looks like he just got off a boat bender. It's like, what? And
hasn't washed it in like 6 days.
Yeah. Like he just looked, and I hate to say this, but unfortunately, And I've never felt older than when I say this. But I do think that there is some level of truth in the fact that eventually the manner in which you are presenting things is going to be reflected by the manner in which it's ingested and interpreted. And if you were to look at the Miami Dolphins and say, okay, 9-8, 11-6, 8-9, 7-10, 35-33 overall. I mean, good Lord. Good Lord. He should be the GM of the Colts. Hell, you double that, at least you got 70-66 instead of 70-78-1. But the manner in which and the way in which you present yourself, I think, goes a long way. And it looked like he was not somebody that was focused on attention to detail. And I know that that's unfair, but I think there's an element of truth to it. I do. I think there's an element of truth to the way in which you, like Curt Cignetti. Curt Cignetti on the sidelines, what do you see when you look over at him? He's the most non-athletic looking dude ever. Curt Cignetti
looks like a computer.
Yes.
He's always processing.
Well, here's what he looks like. If you were to just look at him, Curt Cignetti looks like he might be like part sociopath and part like 7th grade small town in Idaho middle school science teacher, right? He doesn't look like anything having to do with the game of football or athletics at all. He's got kind of a bad haircut. His glasses are like a little bit outdated. He just wears the hoodie and, whatever. But to your point, Eddie, when you look at him, what you see is laser intent focus all the time. When the camera catches him, you're like, what is being computed, to your point, inside that head? He's got the notepad out, he's writing it down, and he looks entirely focused on detail and honed in. And he looks impermeable to distraction. And guess how his team plays? Seemingly exactly like that. They're everywhere where the ball is. There's one guy hitting the quarterback one way and the other one's ready to pounce and spin him around, whatever it might be. They are literally right where they need to be all the time, completely laser focused on attention to detail. And part of that is because you see it on the sideline of the coach and you just naturally associate it in your mind as interpretation of what is happening. And there are certain coaches like a Mike McDaniel that you look at, and when you see the Dolphins, and I don't watch a lot of Miami Dolphins games. I'm not in the Pocatello prison, but if I did, there are a lot of plays that would happen in Miami that I would automatically associate in my mind as being sloppy or not having attention to detail because I look at where it comes from the top, and that's how it's presented. It's how it's presented. You want to know an odd theory? I have a weird theory, Eddie, a weird one that's going to make you think that I literally sit around doing nothing but waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and pulling tubes till 5 a.m. with deep thoughts, which is not true.
Lay it on me, Jake. Lay it on me.
I have a theory that you drive your car more carefully, more aware, and probably get better fuel efficiency the 2 days after you get a car wash. Or after you get your oil changed and your brakes adjusted. Because when your car is clean and you clean it out.
Everything okay with the Jeep, by the way? I know you had some maintenance.
It's running great.
Okay.
Yep. Just had to get some brakes changed. Got a whole new engine in it, running like a top.
Really?
Knock on wood. But.
So you and your car, both with heart replacements.
That is correct. Well, I don't have I don't have a heart transplant, but yes.
Heart procedures.
Correct. That is correct. And if you don't mind me saying so, that car, that Jeep I have, sleek and sexy. Okay.
Okay.
But you literally, I'm not kidding you. Does anybody else notice this? When you pull out of the car wash, your car's glistening clean. You just put a fresh gas in it. You just find that you drive a little more carefully because you're like, my car looks clean. It looks crisp. So I want to take care of it. And I think with coaches, when they look clean and crisp, the team, it feels like they're taking care of it and it's running more smoothly. These are the kinds of things I think about at 3:48 in the morning when I'm sitting there staring at the ceiling and I can't sleep.
Mike Vrabel, another one of those.
In terms of what?
You know, he's usually wearing slacks.
Sweater vest.
Sweater vest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very buttoned down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very. Who are the Sean McVay? Sean McVay's hair is always like perfect, looks well groomed. I mean, he doesn't dress, he doesn't wear suits per se, but he's a very in shape guy. He's a handsome guy.
Kevin O'Connell
probably gets manicures. Do you ever get a manicure?
No, pedicures.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
You get them sawing on the tortilla chips, but you don't get the hands taken care of?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Do you like it when they put the hot stones on either side of your calves?
I just like it when they rub my feet.
Okay. You got any hair on the feet?
No.
You know, Derek Schultz, hairy foot guy.
Really?
It looks like Fred Flintstone.
Well, I mean, he looks like Sasquatch already, so that doesn't surprise me.
He definitely does. JMV is here as part of the crossover. I'm going to find out why he was taking photos of all the cars in the parking lot. I want to know what's going on there. I definitely want to know what's going on there. And we'll get back into what happened last night at the Fieldhouse next. You know, I think
Query
that
and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
that promo could probably be removed, right? But I liked it.
I noticed the host screwed up there in the tease.
What'd I say?
So coming up on Tuesday, we'll recap Pacers and Celtics.
What's
I guess
wrong?
it is Tuesday.
Today's
For some
Tuesday.
reason, I thought today was Monday.
No, today's Tuesday. Well, it's because you weren't here yesterday, right?
I know. It feels like Monday for me.
Yeah, you had the 4-day weekend, right?
Yeah.
Now, what day did you get back from Atlanta? Pacers last night, by the way, that Celtics, we are about to recap that. And I will give you the secret sauce, as we talked about over the course of today, against Miami, which is to take advantage of Miami's or force turnovers from Miami, because that is one area where the Hurricanes are susceptible. Eddie, you went to the Peach Bowl. We mentioned that off the top of the show. You
Yes.
drove down on Friday, got there basically right at game time. But did you then? I know you had to get back yesterday because you were doing the photo shoot with the Oregon Head as part of the Big Head Association, or Federation. Did you come back Sunday?
We left Saturday afternoon.
So did you do anything fun in Atlanta?
Yes, we went to the Peach Bowl.
Well, I mean, aside from that,
the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Yeah, we went to the Georgia Aquarium because it's renowned as one of the best aquariums in the country. So we went there.
saw the fishies.
Yes, we did. And that was really cool. They had some endangered and some exotic fish there that typically aren't at other aquariums. And they had this neat little exhibit. I don't know if it's exhibit, but you can track like certain animals or where they've had them, like they rescued them and then they released them back out into their natural habitat and their natural home in the ocean. They put trackers on them so like you can track them, and they have like these bracelets that are dedicated to specific.
That's cool.
Animals that are out there in the water. Then we walked over to the Coca-Cola, I don't know what it is, factory museum or whatever the heck it is. We walked there, drove around downtown Atlanta for a little bit.
That's right by the Olympic Park.
Yes, both of them, the aquarium and the Coca-Cola place is right there by Olympic Park. Yeah, we walked through that and went to the Brave Stadium, drove around there, and that was about it.
It's a major metropolitan area, though, right?
It reminded me a little bit of Seattle.
I could see that, similar size, but not near as naturally beautiful as Seattle.
No.
And you didn't bring back any of your candy, right?
Not that you know of.
Okay. J&B has arrived. We're going to find out what the sleuthing was. So, John, I'm doing the show here. Yeah. And as you know, by sitting in this situation in
you
this
get
seat,
to spy on everybody's ass down there.
Yes, I can see the whole parking lot, right? And I can watch those that our parking lot is very tight. And so I can watch those that are circling around like buzzards waiting for a spot to open up. That's always fun. And I looked out today and I started giggling because I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on, but J&B has parked his car and is now getting out and he's taking pictures out there.
Yeah.
You're like Ansel Adams out there.
I did. I took pictures of a car that's parked right in the center of two. And you mentioned there's not a lot of parking spots out here. And it's literally backed in to two. And I want to find out who it is. And see how they like their car window soaped. Because it's coming.
Is it a white car?
It is absolutely coming.
It's
the
a
white car?
Yes.
Do
you know whose it is, Eddie?
I do not.
Does he know who it is?
No.
I don't know who it is.
So to explain here,
I do. Well, I'm going to find out.
we have very thin parking spots, and to your point, this car is straddled over so that the left side
It's
is
right
in
in
one
the middle,
spot.
too.
It's
right in the middle. Right in the middle. It's
It has to
taking
be
up
by
two.
design, right?
You cannot take up two with a car like that.
There was
You
another one
can't do
doing
it.
it on the other side as well, but that was a pickup truck.
Now, I have done this before. When I have been in situations where if I was at a restaurant once and some guy parked diagonally backwards so that it took up 4 spots.
Yeah.
4 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. So I just went ahead and parked my car in the one way so that he then had no way to get out.
Yeah, this is, I mean, really, and I would know this because I've really transitioned to such a douchebag the way that you guys have watched this over the past year and a half, and I can't help it. I'm like on an avalanche or a downhill slide into douchery. I recognize douchebaggery easily now because I am one, and that represents exactly a high level of douchery.
There are 3 kinds of people that you can never trust in the world. 3. People that don't know how to deboard an airplane in the proper fashion.
Right on.
People that don't use a voice a dog voice when talking to animals.
Yes. I got that.
and people that cannot follow simple instruction in a parking lot or return their cart in the slot in the grocery store.
Yeah.
That's it.
Those are all fairly easy and certainly reasonable rules of a life existence right there.
Certainly reasonable.
And I think really, I mean, I'm not talking about hurting the vehicle, but soaping the windows.
What would you soap on it?
Well, I got to bar Coast on the car just in case.
But I mean, what would you write?
Huh? Oh, no, we're just, we kind of do it right in areas of vision right there, so you have to go out and tend to it. You not do that in Halloween? Did you not soap windows on the north side of Indianapolis?
I don't carry around an extra bar of Coast just in case. Right?
Eddie, did you soap windows during Halloween over?
not.
You know, I'll tell you the one
Decatur
thing. I'll
Township?
tell you the one thing. I did not do this, but it was done at North Central, and I
Yeah.
don't think people realize the severity of it, is lifesavering somebody's car.
Yeah.
If you put the lifesaver on the car and it melts into the paint and you can't get it off with that, that's
I'm not going to do anything to hurt it, but
Right.
we're going to add a little more work because, I mean, essentially it adds a lot of work to folks
Now
out there.
there's somebody else skulking around looking at the car. They're looking at the car. They're double back. They're doubling back to the car. They're doubling back to the car. Did you find the culprit? They might be taking a photo also. Nope. I think we might have found the culprit. I think she might. I just gave away gender. Sorry. Might be getting in the car. In the car.
I
No,
don't know. I know who
no.
that is.
No.
Is that her car?
I think,
or is the SUV
no.
hers?
I think that person may have gone to the back to check the
I'm
license
not
plate number.
mad, but we teach a lesson. I got to teach a lesson. I can't help it.
Eddie might be right. I think that was actually a license plate check.
Oh, somebody went out.
They might be calling
Woo,
Tim. They
look
might be,
at that.
They
God,
might be calling Timmy.
I hate it because I'm a big ass rat right
Timmy
here.
the
I'm a
Toe
rat.
Man. Timmy the Toe Man might be coming out now.
I'm a squealer. I'm a rat. I told you I can't
You're
help
rat
it.
fake.
Can somebody save me from my douchery? Can somebody do it? Jake, you're a little bit down the douche path too, so I don't think you can save me.
Wait.
No.
I
That's
want to
what
know.
Derek Schultz told me that for years.
What's up?
I don't think you're a douche, but Derek Schultz thinks you're a high level one.
Well, consider the source here. Everything's high level to him. He's 4'8".
I know.
Come on. I'd like to know what world. How did I get roped into this? What have I ever done? You know. What's on the big program today? Mike Tomlin out at Pittsburgh.
I
By the
saw
way.
that. Steve Walsh, the former Miami quarterback, former Colts quarterback. Doug Cruzan, former Hoosier, if you remember, Rose Bowl 67, played in the NFL with the Dolphins. And Jake, one of our all-time favorites, Luther Campbell.
I saw that.
Uncle Luke is coming on the show.
Your favorite song by them?
Get the blank out of my house.
I loved Band in the USA.
Yes, I got
Blank Martinez is a good one.
Well, Get the blank out of my house is the B-side of Me So Horny
Okay.
on vinyl.
Me So Horny, the song came out before I had ever seen Full Metal Jacket. So when she comes out,
right.
Everything you want. That's the beginning of the song. So in the movie, I'm waiting for the song to come on.
When he says sitting at home watching Arsenio Hall to keep it clean instead of what they really said, I want to know how they came up with sitting at home watching Arsenio Hall. Was that them, or do you think that was a record executive saying, if this is going to get any radio airplay whatsoever, we're going to have to substitute for sitting at home being very aroused?
I would think that it probably was because at that time it meant something within the hip hop world in particular, but pop culturally in general, to go on Arsenio Hall, right? So it probably was like
I think so.
a Hail Mary to try to go on Arsenio Hall.
Are you disappointed when you hear the lyric go sitting at home watching Arsenio Hall, much like you're disappointed when you know that they skip over the Phoebe Cates getting out of the pool scene?
Or the extra scenes in Fast Time that you're like, I don't remember this. And you're like, oh, yeah, they had to put this in to make up for the stuff they had to take out. Yeah, there's nothing worse than the clean lyric.
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon. On Die Hard. Yeah.
I mean, the extra lyrics to clean up a song are always terrible.
And I don't even think it's necessary these days because everybody now, no matter what age, and I don't know if that's a sadness or not, but everybody is privy to what is being said. I don't even think, like radio-wise here, why should we have to hold back? Nobody holds back except for us anymore.
That's right.
Why do we?
That's right.
Just curious. Very family friendly.
5:30
PG. Yep. Uncle Luke at 5:30. Get the dump button going there, James.
JMV is next. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow, and I thank you for listening to Query & Company.